Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
In a world where value is measured from the outside, we have forgotten the profound wealth that lives within. For too long, the pressure of survival has created a distance between us, leaving the most vulnerable to struggle in silence. But wealth is not found in scarcity or control. True value begins with the human spirit and the knowledge we share. Imagine a moment where every new life is recognized, not as a burden, but as the initial capital of our future peace. At the first breath, a child receives recognition. An equal foundation is set for food, medicine, education, and dignity. No one is left behind. From every corner of the earth, the same recognition is granted. Equality is no longer a dream, it is the protocol. Behind this vision lies a secure, decentralized infrastructure, a blockchain built for service, not speculation. This network is the pulse of a new humanity, low energy, transparent, and grounded in collective responsibility. When basic needs are met, the mind becomes free, education replaces survival, and knowledge creates the path to peace. Through participation and service, we express our true value. We are no longer competitors. We are contributors. Our technology now serves life. The scars of the old world are healed by the wisdom of the new. We are one people, on one planet, moving toward one destiny. The shadows of the past have finally given way to the light. When we stop fighting ourselves, we begin to search the universe. Peace is the foundation. The stars are our destination. Our journey into the deep mysteries of existence has only just begun. We turn toward the stars with open hearts. Value begins with the human, grows through knowledge, and evolves toward an eternal peace.
And welcome each and all. Welcome back to the Keshe American Knowledge Team. It is June 28th, 2026. I'm your host, Mark Anderson, along with Alex Cork and along with each and every one of the participants. As we're learning more and more, all of us are more or less more equal than we are less equal. And this is what we're learning about. So much going on in the Keshe Foundation. We have plenty to share today. And of course, we invite and look forward to your participation as well. Again, back to the One Nation Network, which is this Keshe coin, which everything seems to be centered around. The Swiss conference is coming up, the new beads and the butterfly as a book holder. Many, many things going on. The humbleness is very important. As he said, the humbleness and growing into this knowledge seems to be a tandem process. The more you become humble, the more you'll understand. And as we heard, the wealth is really within us, not belonging to us. And this is where we've all sort of made the same mistake. But now it's almost like an amazing grace that we're sort of being lifted out of this drudgery on this planet in the living end of it, let's say. The beauty is one of the most fantastic beauties in the universe in the matter state, but the harshness of the living experience is uh, quite harsh. As he said, one of the harshest places to actually live in the universe. What an anomaly. So it's all going to be balanced out as this One Nation network comes in. Again, this elevation of the soul of the man, providing what the planet couldn't provide. In other words, the soup is getting changed. And this is part of the whole process, and we're all involved in, let's say, building the new space city in a way. And we're seeing some of these great AI videos and other things. That's one of the things we'll cover today. But I think we should go to the World Peace Treaty. That's what we saw in this last video, if I can pull it back up. And maybe we can have a bit of a discussion on what was inserted into this video. There's been a couple additions. I think this will be the official one for now, and we'll have a discussion. But let's go to our World Peace Treaty. It's not the end all, but it's the getting to a permanent peaceful condition on this planet is the next step to get to the next step. So let's bring up our World Peace Treaty. Would anyone, this is the Keshe Foundation World Peace Treaty. Again, I guess it's unique to the Keshe Foundation. I've never heard of a World Peace Treaty before. Again, it's between you and your universe, between you and your structure, finding peace within yourself first, and then the others. So we're all tasked with creating a peaceful universe within ourselves. As we understand, man exists and operates in the universe, and the universe exists and operates within the man. So the idea is finding or creating a balance of a peaceful universe. Would anyone like to read the World Peace Treaty? You can find it on any search engines or on the Keshe Foundation. Again, it's between you and your central energies. And again, our closest friend is the soul, but yet he's played this game of catch me if you can, in a way. And of course, the soul is the one we steal from the most. Maybe when we can get this relationship patched up and move a little bit closer, some of the universe will start to open up to more of us. Would anyone like to read the World Peace Treaty? This is part of the new science, the new ethos, and the new language being introduced by the Keshe Foundation. And of course, this is where science meets the soul of the man. And we heard so much about this rite of passage being that pupil, and so on. And so the majesty of it. And we're all very equal in that sort of category, no matter what color eyes you have. So as we're just learning to start to use our own sort of Magrav system, and there's much more. As I understand, we're just at the beginning of this journey of finding out more about ourselves. In the energy dimension, we're very good in the physicality, but the energy dimension is what has mystified us. And of course, we've never, as he said, we've been in denial all along about this energy dimension, even calling the dream something else, even calling the deja vu. and so on. So we've been misled, but we're getting sort of untangled step by step in this whole process. And one of the major keys is becoming more peaceful, where we can exist as the creator exists, not destroying any of its creation. Anyone like to read the World Peace Treaty? You don't have to be an angel to read it, but just have the intention of moving closer to that, with the understanding that we have tools to help perfect this. And once those tools are sort of inculcated within your structure, you can live exactly the way the Creator lives and live exactly as long as the Creator lives. I made the man like me. So I'll read it. We, as citizens of the earth from this moment on, except to lay down all tools of aggression and war. We shall never think about getting involved or incite war or develop or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. And to this we all agree and swear with our, you can delete as appropriate, our nation, our territory, our council, our religion, our city, our town, our body, and our souls. Simply put your name and your signature. Again, a standard agreement in a way, but this agreement is between you and your central energies, which many people don't even acknowledge or aren't aware that that central energy exists. Again, on behalf of your nation, your territory, your council, your religion, your city, your town, or as an individual. So you can even stand in the balance, so to speak, for others until they come along and are enlightened to this process, or the soul sort of changes something in their physicality that allows them to see a little bit deeper. Have it witnessed, and after signing this treaty, be proud to display this certificate wherever you consider being important to you, that everyone can see and know your ethos to fellow men and the mankind and other created beauties of the Creator. In a way, this is your ticket, or a partial ticket, into the entrance into that dimension of energy of the universal community. And of course, Mr. Keshe was mentioning something like that about the humbleness. As I said, you should become more humble the more you understand this knowledge. But as he said, you become more humble, you're halfway. Your ticket is halfway punched into getting into this universal community interaction, so to speak. So the humbleness has quite a key. And Mr. Keshe always, in a way, leads by example. Any comments on the World Peace Treaty? And if we go back to the video, let's just see, where did the video go? There it is. Any comments on sort of this conceptual overview? 1,000 coins, lifetime grant, every child at birth. This will give the parents much satisfaction. It's being tested now. Part of this is in the transmutation or transmission tests, where they're going to they need to perfect this sort of feeding, and then I guess the coins will start to appear, but they're quite advanced, and it probably want to confirm more and more, but that's part of the, so every child born will receive over the course of a lifetime 1,000 coins. I'm a little confused. At one point he said it was for 100 years, another point he said it was for 1,000 years, but either way, if you live to 100 or 1,000, there'll be plenty of support for you in this whole understanding. So they need to last a whole lifetime. That's why we've said in the Keshe Foundation, this Keshe coin will become the effort of the man, because it goes so much farther than the game you play working and getting a paycheck. Did someone want to say something? I heard, or I thought I saw a mic open.
Yeah, you said that you know, you're confused about 100 years, 1,000 years. I think it's not a confusion in a way, because the more one becomes connected to the energy of the universe, the less dependent we are to the the monetary system, because you don't need to attached to this. This is, Keshe coin is kind of like, in my opinion, our, weaning from the monetary system mechanism, because, we are used to the scarcity-based paradigm, and now that we are moving away from scarcity to energy, unlimited energy condition, this we will start to become independent of this monetary system. If you can make your own, let's say, whatever you need out of energy, do you need anything? So it's kind of like that. The idea that do you need money? Do you need to exchange some tokens to get something done? It's kind of like, and the less in time, there won't be any need for it at all.
Yeah, it seemed that I recall him, Mr. Keshe, mentioning something about our desire to kill other creatures limits our life on this planet. And also, if we carry that into the universe, it limits the life of your soul in the universe. Apparently, our need or our want to kill other creatures. So maybe if you only make it to 100, you maybe have killed too much. I'm not sure. Not that we're really talking about enforcing the preservation of the physicality, as we're understanding. It's more or less a shell or a guard dog. But maybe if you, and he said this before, when we used to eat physically once every 3 or 4 days, we used to live to 700 years. So maybe there's a direct correlation in our killing to our life in the physicality or life in the soul of the universe. And depending on which way you choose to go, if you move away from it, you'll certainly be sustained for 1,000 years and have that comfort of knowing that your needs will be met through this coin.
So if 3 days gets you to 1,000 years, what happens if you go to 4 days?
Oh, I missed that. Go ahead, please.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kind of agreeing.
It's okay. We like jokes.
Yeah, no, but once you completely detach from food, your physicality is no longer burdened by any of the emotion of taking another life. So it's a different kind of situation then.
Yeah, so many colors and so many emotions and senses in the universe that we're not even aware of, as he said, yet. So we're just learning this whole process. So the idea is to create a coin mined from the universe in a way, and apparently they're already mined. And this will give every child born, but apparently this is a little bit of a caveat. I'm going to go closer to the screen because there's going to be conditions. You just can't take your 1,000 Keshe coins, which are valued at 1,000 each eventually, or right now. But if you can only call on a number of them per year, I think. So annual usage limits, and this is what there's conditions apparently on using this. Maximum usage to ensure long-term sustainability, ages 0 to 10. And as he said, this one Keshe coin is probably going to go farther than $10,000. Who knows? If you were to have to earn the money and spend it and all the rest of it, when you can get the energy of an apple and the emotional taste of it in a way for a quarter of a penny or a half a penny, you can see how far 1,000 of a Keshe coin will go. So there'll be much surplus.
And if you connect directly to the universal energy, it's 0.
Mm-hmm. This is what is happening. This is why these systems are inculcating this understanding, or it's not a new understanding, apparently. We're already doing 80% of it. It's just we're short 20. The planet needs to provide that. It doesn't. So that's getting rectified. Karina, please. I see your mic has come open unless it was inadvertent.
Yes, it was. I don't want to speak.
She said she didn't want to speak. It was a little...
I'm sleeping.
Okay. You want me to mute your mic for you? I can...
Oh, yes, please do so.
Thank you. Thank you for your presence. So, annual usage, 10 coins per year if you're 0 to 10, even though the other balance will be in your bank. 20 coins per year, ages 10 to 20, and 30 coins per year for adults and retirees, all adults, including pensioners, capped at a maximum usage. And as I said, there'll probably be leftover coins because they're going to go much farther than 1,000 that you would earn from whatever position you're working in, or your donkey work, let's say. Even though all work is important, there's really no donkey work, as we've explained. Government's participation in requirements. The Keshe Foundation Peace Treaty, which is what we just covered, again, between you and your soul. And now we need these world leaders to step up and pledge their nations to peace. Keshe Foundation Peace Treaty. Governments must formally accept and sign to receive allocation, because the governments are involved in this too. They're actually going to get a percentage of this coin that you earn. The taxes have to be paid. Some of it goes into the game and keeping the structure running, but much of it will go to governments. However, those government coins are just not going to be unmonitored. They're going to be highly monitored, and they're not going to go in the wrong direction, let's say, to buy another summer retreat or some exotic stone or some piece of jewelry for a government minister. That's not going to be allowed to happen. And I'm sure they will try. 100 coins per registered citizen. So received for every, it's a bit unclear, for every registered person, payments spread over 10 years. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but maybe someone else. So the nation will be given coins on behalf of their citizens, apparently. 100 coins per registered citizens. Is that the government will receive that? Which will be 10% of the allocation you receive, which they will receive, sounds like $100,000 in Keshe coin per registered citizen. And again, this is just in the beginning of the whole process. Although it's well thought out, well planned, we're just sort of opening up the package in a way slowly, which things are subject to change as well. National birth registration, association with receiving government determined strictly by regional birth registration. Gail, I think you had an issue or a question on that. I don't know if you're even still here. Let's just see. And there was something, yes. I don't know if you speak. Let me make again. Thank you. Go ahead. About this registration, I thought he said it would be where you were born, or would it be where you were living? That would be considered your home country. Anyone?
Yes, because a lot of people are not in their birthplace. So it's interesting how that's going to work out, but discussion that if the actual governments, if it becomes one payment for the world.
Right. Okay, you are breaking.
Okay.
You're breaking up just a little bit there. We didn't hear everything clearly. But as we were talking earlier, it's the same pot, so to speak. So whether the coin goes to Canada or it goes to South Africa, eventually it'll all mesh together as we're moving into the one planet, one nation, one race for world peace. So no matter where it goes, it'll be used appropriately as I see it. So the official registration, and we're talking about a game, as I said. He said that this elevation of the soul is hidden in this game called Peace and Enlightenment, which is a very nice game. Of course, the ethos of the thinking, speaking, and acting as you play this game, that ethos sinks in, and so doesn't the understanding of the compression technology. but it's for you to pick it up. This is how you'll earn your Keshe coins, as I understand it. And to me, it's got a strong teaching of the glass, the stained glass, the frequency, the bells that he was talking about. Again, he addressed this saying right now it's just a sort of a mechanical bull in a way, or a mechanical system, but once the cosmic rays antenna start to come in, this will have a much more profound effect on some of the energy transfers that are going on. Sorry, Gail, I didn't make you co-host. Any comments about the game of peace and enlightenment? But to get your coins, if we go back to this www.keshefoundation.at is a club or an association set up in Austria, as I understand it. If we have any Austrians here, maybe they'd like to tell us. But it's a worldwide, I guess, club or association, and this is an integral part of getting your Keshe coins once they're released. You need to re-register and pick up a code. That code will be somewhere inserted into the game, and immediately you will receive whatever percentage of Keshe coins, and I guess you can start to use them once that testing has been perfected. Anyone want to say anything about this Keshe Foundation or club in a way? I understand it gives certain rights and privileges to association members that the general public doesn't have. Maybe that's part of the sharing in the game with Marketplace. I believe there's something here for, is it Marketplace? Let's see. Yeah, this is the Marketplace. So there'll be a number of things, listing trades, and this will allow some sort of facilitation using Keshe coins or cash coins. I think that's part of the game. And then converting them, as he said, into your local currency. And how would you do that? You would turn your Keshe coin into the foundation, again, a computer entry. And when that's been verified and put back in its storage position, you would be sent the equivalent, less any taxes or fees to your governments or whatever tariffs, that you would then receive that amount of gold in exchange for your Keshe coin. And then you could take that gold to a local broker, let's say, and sell the gold, and you would have the cash. That's the way it's going to work initially. If you need currency in your national currency. So that's the way, as I understand it, it'll work. And of course, you're saying, where are they going to get all this gold? They don't have any gold. And that's probably true, more or less. But he said we're mining it from the universe, and the universe is unlimited. And of course, we saw that. We've played this so many times. So they're going to mine it as they need it. But yet, at the same time, I was thinking the 400 locations in China, which are each going to be tasked of making a ton of gold per year, that may have some impact depending on how this turnover starts to play out. And of course, that would probably make gold rather worthless in the long term, wouldn't it? But I think until the Keshe coin is accepted worldwide, this will be the process of circumventing. If you wanted something from a vendor or a seller and they weren't accepting the Keshe coin at this point, you could then turn your coin into the foundation, receive. It's a little more cumbersome, but it can be worked out. Any comments on this idea? I think it's a fantastic way to move on this. But you just can't take your 10 Keshe coins and cash them in for gold. I think there'll, again, be conditions or limitations, heavily monitored at first, because we just have a tendency to want to abuse sometimes or figure we can circumvent something that has been put in place, as we've heard in a number of examples from Mr. Keshe. Any other comments? What else is on here? So it looks like it's very nicely laid out. But if you're going to work with the Keshe Foundation as a spin-off company or integrate your technology, or as a government, as it's clearly stated here, you're going to have to accept and sign the World Peace Treaty. And of course, that's been on the table for probably more than 25 years. This is what Mr. Keshe did originally. He went to the world governments all by himself, as I understand it. Of course, I think he was well known in many circles, and said he could show the people on this planet how to feed themselves and generate their own power for little or no cost. Again, advanced space technology in exchange for pledging to peace. But that didn't work, and now it's coming full circle, and this whole program is going to be delivered, and it looks like more than one government's, major governments are already on board. And probably many more to step forward after it becomes safer, let's say, to do that. But even to turn this into a sort of an IMF and a World Bank, again, we're touching some of these structures which are almost third rail-ish, like Social Security, but it's what has been promised will be delivered, and we're all part of helping to deliver a small corner of a very, very immense carpet that's not only going to stretch across this planet, but it's going to stretch across the universe. As he said, this knowledge needs to be taken across the universe, so there's even a bigger plan in place. So I'll just, anyone would like to read the top part? The provided document outlines the regulatory framework and distribution limits of the use of Keshe coins. Remember, this is not a cryptocurrency at this point in time. This is an internal coin to the Keshe Foundation by individuals and nations. To ensure the initial grant of 1,000 coins lasts a lifetime, the foundation enforces strict annual spending caps based on the recipient's age, and we covered that. These digital assets are strictly non-transferable and revert to a central reserve upon the holder's passing. Furthermore, national governments may qualify for a specific allocation of coins for every registered citizen, provided they sign a formal peace treaty. Eligibility for these benefits is verified through official birth records and active registration on the organization's primary digital platform. The system functions as a controlled economic structure designed to manage long-term resource allocation. Now, Ike, you were mentioning earlier about some people don't have a birth registration, or there's no records. Some people were born years and years before a lot of this. Even in the United States, there's could be still a few people without a birth record. Any comment on that you'd like to make? I'm sure there'll be a new...
Yeah, that's something that's well known. There's some births that are not registered, depending on the circumstances and all that across the world. And then it will be difficult if they just base it on birth. So I guess there has to be some type of metrics, some point to accommodate those ones.
Like a biometric of some, maybe a palm scan or an iris or something, even though I don't know how great that is. But yeah, there could be, that would be one way of making your identification, I think, in the Keshe coin. And therefore that scan, if it wasn't in the system, perhaps could be entered in as a...
Yeah, even in some developing countries, they do have births at home. There's no way to register it. The people who give birth in their domain, they don't have it registered. So many births with no registration.
I'm sure there'll be ways of getting everyone on board, even though they have no idea at this point that this is even coming their way. So as I said, amazing grace through the...
Well, it could be a situation of hybrid, like Gail was mentioning. You utilize the residency, the country of residence, and then your birth, country of birth. That could be the way to do it.
Yeah, and he's given the governments an incentive, 100 coins per registered citizen. So maybe the governments will be, that's 100,000, isn't it? I mean, in the bigger picture, you can't get it all at once. But this is a nice incentive for the governments to awaken their citizens to what's available and take quite a bit of burden off the governments. So it's well thought out, well planned. It's probably been used before in the universe once people got into this level or this civilization of computers and other things. Again, this may not be unique, but it's tailored for this planet. Maybe we should go to the announcements and hear Mr. Keshe speak more of this. Every week, usually, there's a news portion, so to speak. But again, the game of peace and enlightenment, when Alex comes in, we'll put some of these in the chat. There's a usgetplasma.org, there's a worldgetplasma.org, and so on. Okay. Or shall we, maybe let's listen to the overview of what Ed has done of this idea of more of our structure. This is what Mr. Keshe is opening up in a way, understanding how our eyes are an actual, a beautiful piece of majesty in a way, as he said, not to look at so much the color, even though that's for the physicality, this little pupil. And I think, Ike, that was one of the questions you asked about the white part of the eye and the pupil. And I'm still understanding why before he said the white part was the most important, and now it's the pupil in a way, but maybe I'm not fully understanding exactly what was conveyed. But this is, again, a summary and explainer of the 648 Knowledge Seekers Workshop. Again, Mr. Keshe said in the past he'd teach more about this deja vu, but he said don't even use the term deja vu. It's more of something that you get an impression that you've been here and you've done that before, and the soul is showing you something in a way to make a decision. As we said, your soul is your closest friend, your biggest scout, looks 360 degrees, tries to protect the shell of the protecting the boss or the guard dog and so on. So we're just learning a bit more about, sometimes you do get those impressions, or I had this in a dream or something else the soul has already seen. It's trying to share it with you, again, about keeping you safe in more or less ways. But we have to resolve this issue of stealing from the soul so much. Our closest friend, but yet at the same time, the one we steal from the most. And I know Alex is not for stealing. Okay, so thank you, Ed. Continue to make these Grand Slam little videos. It's even touching people that have listened to these, apparently, that were kind of standoffish about the foundation, almost like getting a little appetizer. So feel free to share these with those you want to help enlighten, that they may tune in and then go to the larger workshop. So again, this is just a summary, but beautifully done. And again, many points to consider, think about. I never knew I worked this way or could communicate this way. Don't look at the color of the eye. I think he said, look into the pupil. That's the direct connection with the soul. They'll feel your emotions somehow. Again, we're just at the beginning of this journey to be opened up week by week, month by month, year by year.
Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into the fascinating framework of KSW 648. We're going to unpack some really unconventional and intriguing theories about human existence, the mechanics of sleep, and the cosmos. And it all builds up to this one totally mind-bending concept, the idea that your soul is actively trying to guide your daily life. Okay, let's dive into this. You know that feeling, right? You're in a totally new situation. Maybe you're just walking down a street you've literally never been to, and suddenly you're hit with this overwhelming, inexplicable sense of déjà vu, that absolute certainty that you have been here before. Now, we usually just brush that off as, a weird glitch in the brain. But what if it isn't a glitch at all? What if it's actually a direct message? Today, we're exploring a framework that says these moments are way more significant than we realize. So, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The dual nature of emotion, 2. The porthole to the universe, 3. The nightly handover, 4. Déjà vu and the soul's guidance, and 5. Connecting to the cosmos. Starting with section 1, the dual nature of emotion. So, according to this framework, humanity kind of suffers from a blindness to its own duality. Our existence is almost schizophrenic, completely split between two things. First, you have physical emotion, which is entirely tied to your daily waking life, your immediate environment, all those daily stresses. And then you have the emotion of the soul of man, or the STM. To really wrap our heads around this, think about it like this. Say you feel absolutely zero affection for your mother in your day-to-day waking life. But then in a dream you see her and you're showering her with incredible love, hugging and kissing her. Why such a massive disconnect? Well, these teachings propose that the soul's emotions are entirely separate. They just aren't controlled by your physical reality. They operate completely independently, and we mainly experience them during what the Source describes as the soul's travels. Moving right along to section 2, porthole to the universe. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it bridges that gap. If we have these two completely separate sets of emotions and experiences, how do they actually connect? The Source does something really cool here. It redefines a beautifully ordinary part of our anatomy, the pupil of your eye. In this context, it's referred to as the black hole. And it's described not just as some biological lens to let light in, but as a continuous, unclosable passage for the soul to connect to universal energies. There's a profound assertion being made here. Because this passage is quite literally always open, the soul is continuously connected to its universe. Permanently shutting this connection? Well, that's what humanity calls death. And interestingly enough, the text impartially notes that eye color, whether you have blue, green, or brown eyes, is essentially just cosmetic. It's simply a physical adaptation to handle atmospheric pressure and your physical environment. But that black pupil right in the center, that is identical in every single human being. It's the soul's rite of passage. The teachings even suggest a functional division for this connection, which is pretty wild. They propose that one eye is utilized for the soul's energy going out, while the other is strictly for receiving. Basically, it's an incredibly efficient way to prevent a cosmic traffic jam. Which brings us to section 3, the nightly handover. Since the soul is always connected, you might be wondering, what happens when our physical body shuts down for the night? The text describes falling asleep as a highly active, coordinated military command handover. You know when you've held someone as they're falling asleep and suddenly they give that little shiver or twitch? Modern science usually calls that the body releasing overcharges. But this framework argues that those physical shivers are actually the exact moment of the handover. It's the literal physical manifestation of the soul taking the reins so it can begin its nightly travels into the dimensions of the universe. And I absolutely love this metaphor. It leaves the physical body with a very specific job. The text says, quote, "Your physical body is nothing but a guard dog, physically, looking after the boss inside. So while the boss, the soul, is out traveling, the physical body just stays behind. It rests, sure, but it remains deeply alert, just like a loyal guard dog. Even with its eyes closed, the body is ready to jump at the slightest sudden noise or touch. And when it does, it instantly signals the traveling boss to come back home and take over the physical dimension once again." All right, on to section 4, déjà vu and the soul's guidance. This concept of the traveling soul brings us to the absolute core focus of KSW 648. If our dreams are actually the recorded memories of the soul's travels through the universal community, then deja vu is the ultimate manifestation of those travels bleeding directly into our waking life. It's not a misfire of your brain's neurons. It's a recorded memory of your soul's actual travels into the future. Your soul has literally already been to this exact moment. So when you feel that undeniable wave of familiarity, the text urges you to stop in your tracks and ask two direct questions. Why has my soul brought me back here? And what am I supposed to learn from this? And this brilliantly illustrates what the source calls a personal day of judgment. Deja vu is essentially the soul providing you with advance warnings based on its prior travels. It has already seen the outcome of the exact situation you are stepping into, and it actively pushes that feeling to the forefront of your consciousness. Why? Just to see what you're going to do with it. So, how do we actually apply this guidance? Well, first, treat deja vu as a clear warning. It's often meant to help you avoid a specific outcome, like an accident. You need to recognize that gut feeling as advice from a friend who has literally traveled there first. Crucially, the framework says you should never let your physical emotions, your ego, your immediate desires, or even your waking logic override the soul's guidance. The text is pretty blunt about this. Ignoring the soul's advice means you will, quote, pay for it. And that leads to that bitter realization where you're left saying, man, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Finally, Section 5, Connecting to the Cosmos. So what's the end game here? What happens when humanity finally starts listening to the boss instead of just letting the physical guard dog run the whole show? The teaching suggests that right now, humanity is basically locked in a village going nowhere. We are essentially trapped in a prison of planet Earth simply because we continually prioritize our physical emotions over our soul. Progress requires complete trust. By trusting the soul, which, according to the text, never lies, never cheats, and has no debts, we allow it to wash away the dirt and damage of our physical life. And that is what ultimately opens the door for us to join the universal community. Now, the source material doesn't just leave it at theory. It actually offers practical exercises so you can confirm this for yourself. One fascinating recommendation is to wear stereo headphones to sleep. The idea is to adjust the sound barrier until you hear not with your ears, but with the very center of your brain, effectively pinpointing the soul. Then you record the future scene dreams that follow. Another incredibly simple exercise is to just look in a mirror. Gaze right past your eye color and deeply acknowledge the black hole of the pupil. Which brings us to the ultimate question laid out by these teachings. The next time you stand in front of a mirror, what are you going to see? Will you just see the superficial physical beauty of your eye color? Or will you recognize the sheer majesty of that black portal, the continuous, unclosable passage that feeds your soul and connects you directly to the entire universe? It's a genuinely profound thought to leave you with, and it definitely challenges everything we thought we knew about our bodies, our sleep, and our ultimate destiny. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, I was just looking for that picture, although it's not clear. I guess we're starting to look into the mirror a different way. The eye has always seemed, in a way, a mystery, and it almost looks like a universe as we see in the beginning here. Um, is this the one? I think so. There's our infinity type of infinity loop we see. Any comments on the video? I just can't find it. It's opening up a little bit more about our understanding. And what I wanted to share, and we've always, we're going to go to the announcements next, but We always thought about this. Let me just find it there. 365, I think it is, where he said the soul is active 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, travels during the night, travels during the day. So when he says travels, I think he means travels in dimension. He doesn't mean physically traveling, as your body is not physically traveling, is it? Although we will learn transmutation in the future and sort of move the physicality. But this soul apparently is having quite a grand time in a way, day or night. But apparently the night is the exclusivity in a way of the soul, the handoff. So anyone, what Mr. Keshe has often said, the soul travels when you go to sleep. Does it actually travel, or does it just tune the radio? You can get 1,000 channels on a shortwave radio without moving location. I think this is what the soul is doing. Any comments on that? But those two examples of the physicality being the guard dog, or I think in the last workshop, the physicality being the shell of the snail, just protecting the little chap inside so he can get its work done. But at the same time, it's not like the soul disregards the physicality. It needs it to operate. So again, being your scout and the physicality in the same, goes to sleep, but yet has one ear open in case any sort of thing happens. Yes?
Yeah, I think it's the right word. I mean, travel is from one place, one location to the next. So the soul does travel. When you say physical travel, you all have to look at the soul as energy.
Mm-hmm.
So what your connotation of travel, it doesn't apply to some type of energy, something that has no physicality. Soul is a collection of energy. So travel could be used to describe that process.
Yeah, it just fooled me because whenever we hear travel, we go somewhere, right? But apparently this is dimension travel. Is traveling in the energy dimension, which is instantaneous. And to me, it just has that window open all the time. We've never looked at the pupil that way. I guess we're becoming smarter pupils in a way. I mean, students of the Keshe Foundation. So yes, I think we'll look in the mirror a little differently. Again, this is the escape of the soul through that little passage. And this is the chap we're trying to get more in touch with. I always wondered why he doesn't put his foot down. Mosfek, why doesn't the soul put its foot down? It's kind of a joke in a way. Because the soul doesn't have a foot, does it? In other words, and say, hey, look, I'm here. But apparently it's doing it quite a bit. But we say, no, I'm in charge. That was just a thought that briefly came into my mind of not going to the party or not getting into that particular car. But now it's been trying in a very soft and gentlemanly way to reach us more. Yes, Mosfek? Why doesn't the soul put its foot down?
Yeah, the soul does put its feet down, but it's a different way. It's it essentially creates a shake, which is a vibration, kind of physical vibration of different magnitude. It depends on the situation or event. So it creates a shaking type of thing in the body.
But I was.
This is a function of the soul. It doesn't, once the physicality crosses a certain boundary, a limit, it goes into this vibration. It's kind of like some of our engines. If you over rev it, it goes into a vibration. Usually it's balanced, but once you cross that boundary, it goes into a vibration state. And the vibration and the magnitude and the frequency of vibration depends on how the soul wants to inform the body. But this is kind of like the extreme measure and your foot down kind of thing. This is how it's done. Anyway,
I mean, normally the boss usually, says, "Hey, look, I'm the boss in this factory, and you're the worker." Okay, I sort of give the order, but the soul doesn't put its foot down or say, "Hey, you've been misbehaving in this area. I'd like you to correct it because it's really unsettling for me to have to see this, see your physicality."
Well, then the physicality has to learn, so it's guiding us to learn, and sometimes, physicality goes, banana. It's not the most, what do you call it? Behaved guard dog.
Doesn't want to stay on the leash. It wants.
Well, it has its own issues, and and especially when you're attached to some of the wild dogs in the jungle. So, sometimes soul has to intervene, and it does intervene, and it has the capacity to intervene. Yes.
But just amazing. Again, we have one of these expressions in the One Planet, One Nation. I love you, my soul. I live you, and I love with you, and I adore you. So maybe in a way that's teasing the soul out a bit by giving it acknowledgement. It gets a little bit tickled, and then see what the soul will bring you back in return, or even going to sleep, asking the soul to bring back what I need to be perfect in the dimension of physicality. Start working with this energy dimension. Again, it's hard, but it's this is where science meets the soul of the man, or the central energy, as they call it in the universe. I don't think they call it a soul. They call it a center, or a triangle, perhaps. So let's go to the announcements and see what other exciting things Mr. Keshe has shared with us this week. Any comments? Feel free. Welcome, Daniel. Okay, we're gonna see if we can go back to this. I'm gonna bring it to the.
Are you addressing me, Mark?
Yes, just saying welcome.
Oh, you're quite welcome too as well. I'm glad to be listening to you.
Okay.
I wasn't feeling too well last Sunday, so I cut out, but I'm back in again.
Good.
And I enjoy catching up.
Yeah, it's getting more and more exciting. We're seeing more of the puzzle pieces. We're seeing the introduction of the material creation last year. Now the new agriculture, another product that came in of these beads for pain and sweetness. So many, many, many things being shared by the Keshe Foundation. The conference.
Yes, I'm getting very excited, Mark. Looking forward to number 666.
Yes, this is the teaching where perhaps it's going to coincide with the announcement of the Meshiach, or the Mekti, I guess, the promised one. And then we'll see what happens at that point in time. But many, many exciting things we're seeing. And of course, the UFOs, this sort of mystery of the Pentagon, and this top pilot reporting he was attacked by alien craft. But again, I think the let's say the secret.
It's all over the internet now.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it in a few places, and if those are there, it's everywhere, I'm sure.
Danny Haifong, I didn't see that one, but they said he's been talking about it. I heard someone else talking about it. Of course, we saw Mr. Keshe in the reactor group where they showed that flight, that Malaysian flight, who sort of disappeared into the cloud, and he said this was the Keshe plasma technology. And of course, in one of the videos that we see that Reaper drone that was captured in when, 2011, 2012, that Obama asked if they could have their toy back. But again, it was the Keshe, Mr. Keshe always said this was the Keshe plasma technology that captured that drone. The Iranian government never admitted it until maybe 2 years ago, or they put something out. I think it was in Veterans Today reference to it. And of course, this is part of what was shown in the last workshop. Again, Mr. Keshe said we'll leave it we won't say anything about it. We didn't create the video, but maybe we'll have, I think we're going to have a look at it coming up here in these announcements. So let's see if we're sort of lined up for this somewhere. I have it at 53. Okay, let's just go ahead.
Those in the Zoom can also use the chat or the Q&A. Okay, we'll be back shortly.
In a world where value is measured from the outside, we have forgotten the...
Okay, let's just review this again. It's been edited since the last time we played it. We did play it in the beginning, but let's see it again. And then we'll go into the announcements, and then I think Rick will show the video of the UFOs. Or, again, this is just an animation, but there's some interesting observations going on.
Found wealth that lives within. For too long, the pressure of survival has created a distance between us, leaving the most vulnerable to struggle in silence. But wealth is not found in scarcity or control. True value begins with the human spirit and the knowledge we share. Imagine a moment where every new life is recognized, not as a burden, but as the initial capital of our future peace. At the first breath, a child receives recognition, a foundation for food, medicine, and dignity. No one is left behind. From every corner of the earth, the same recognition is granted. Equality is no longer a dream, it is the protocol. Behind this vision lies a secure, decentralized infrastructure, a blockchain built for service, not speculation. This network is the pulse of a new humanity, low energy, transparent, and grounded in collective responsibility. When basic needs are met, the mind becomes free, education replaces survival, and knowledge creates the path to peace. Through participation and service, we express our true value. We are no longer competitors, we are contributors. Our technology now serves life. The scars of the old world are healed by the wisdom of the new. We are one people, on one planet, moving toward one destiny. The shadows of the past have finally given way to the light. When we stop fighting ourselves, we begin to search the universe. Peace is the foundation. The stars are our destination. Our journey into the deep mysteries of existence has only just begun. We turn toward the stars with open hearts. Value begins with the human, grows through knowledge, and evolves toward an eternal peace.
Any comments? Then we're going to carry on. I thought that was very nice. When the basic needs of people are met, the mind is set free. And this is what he wants us to have time for, exploring ourselves and exploring the universe. But when you're working 2 or 3 or 4 jobs and you're trying to figure out how to feed the children, and the children are trying to figure out where the food is coming from and the water and the fuel and the rest, the mind is not free to be basically learning. And so we're setting the environment for some beautiful, beautiful creations to appear. They are beautiful, but I'm just saying without this harshness of trying to survive in the physical life. So we're going to go into the announcements. Any comments? We've seen the video twice now, but I think it's instructive, to say the least.
I think it will encourage the world population. Now there's value in their life.
Yes. Yes, it's going to settle down the emotions. I think even marriages will be happier once this starts to take shape, because the wife won't say I need the money for this, and the husband won't say I need funds for this, and while the children go without, or the husband doesn't tell that he has a few coins in his pocket and goes out and does something else with it, and so on and so forth. So every child will have this. And of course, this will be a major impact if you're working at a place, and if you are still working. You don't have to be there if you're under abuse. As he said, you'll be able to say, hey, I don't need this. I'm already have everything I need. I'm just here as a person that wants to serve because I like whatever we're doing. So that person won't be locked into an abusive worker boss sort of manager relationship. So this is again another dimension of this, and how many of us have wanted to quit in abusive situations, but then we think of the rent, the food bill, the insurance is due, I can't go out without any money, and so on and so forth. So this is again just preparing the table in a way. Amazing grace to humanity. Let's continue.
Okay, we're back again at the 648th Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, June 25th, 2026. So, as promised, this is the second part, and there will be an opportunity for questions. But before that, Mr. Keshe, always, I would say, has something to say before beginning the questions. So please go ahead, Mr. Keshe.
I sent you a video. Check it.
Yes.
Show it. There is a copyright on it.
Okay, I can put it through YouTube and find out in a few minutes, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try that.
Thank you very much. See if it doesn't cause us any problem on a copyright.
So there must be a way to put a video that you've made through YouTube to see if there's any copyright infringements. We'll have to ask Rick in the Keshe Plasma Reactor group on Wednesday, because he seemed to be able to vet that video rather quickly and then say there's no copyright infringement. And apparently this is quite a touchy subject these days. It can get you banned or demonetized or even deplatformed. So this one doesn't have that infringement. Feel free to share it.
It's very important because this is another extension of the Keshe Foundation work. When it's announced, we can show. This is the second time publicly, openly, the technology is used. As many of you know, the ONNs are now in process of distribution amongst you knowledge seekers. What we would like to add to this, please support us in testing this system to the limit as you receive it, as our team works in the background to do. And try to use the system in the games and the conversion if it's possible, that we can see how the conversion between the coins can take shape once the system running. Because then you come into the process of understanding and registration.
Can you explain, anybody explain that using the system in the games as conversion? What does that mean?
Well, conversion, maybe you'd like an energy drink or an apple. I think they're going to test this, or maybe you'll get a Keshe coin and you can turn it in for gold and see how that works. I'm not sure. Anyone else?
Is it already established in the game?
What's that?
The conversion of the coin or something, or whatever you talked about, because he said try to utilize the system in the game. So is it the O&M in the game as part of conversion or something? I'm not sure what he means by that.
Sorry, there's probably some things in settings here where you can put in, once you get I think he said October for this, but maybe a few people have a few to play with right now to test whatever they'd like to test. So I think this is your wallet address. You're going to get a new code, and that's going to be entered in as your cash coin. In the game, it'll be a cash coin. As you convert it, it's a cash coin, as I understand it. But let's just see what he said. We would like to, okay, this is the second time. Okay, the problem, okay. So the video, which we're going to see, it's now in process and distribution among knowledge seekers. Okay, so just to be sure everyone knows, we go to the Keshe Foundation store. Let's go back here. And again, the store is going to move to Shopify. Now, this is what he's talking about with the One Nation Network, where they want 10,000 of these units, maybe in the future 100,000. I think 10,000 will support a billion people. So there'll be more, and there'll be other improvements. You can order this. This is where the game and all of the documents of the Keshe Foundation will be sort of embedded. This is what's the Cosmic Ray will be added to it, all the knowledge seekers workshops and marketplace and so on. So this is basically the biggest gift. He said, you asked for peace, I put it on the table. And again, this is part of changing the bigger soup, as he said, on this planet. They've contacted a couple of governments, or at least one, to embed these on the highest mountain and underneath in the deepest trenches on this planet, because we have to cover not only the man on the surface, but all the creatures in the sea, that they move away from killing and destroying each other. As we see in this planet, the stronger eats the weaker. In space, the stronger feeds the weaker or elevates the weaker. So this is when he's talking about the One Nation Network and some of its ramifications. And again, the elevation of the soul of the man is hidden behind this feeding and wellness and traveling, which will be in the game. But it's all targeted on the elevation. Every product in the Keshe Foundation store is targeted for elevation of soul. Okay, anyone else want to add anything? Oops, let's see here, sorry. Ike, I don't know if you got your answer or part of it.
Just still not clear. Probably ask more.
Okay, let's just bring this back over here. So again, it's a testing phase before it's fully released, because you know, if you're going to give these coins to someone that's really, really dependent on them, it has to work. It cannot not work. So that's what part of the test coming up in the foundation in the next 5 sessions or something.
We have to learn, correct our problems, and gradually build on the next step, next dimension of the work of the Keshe Foundation with the materials. Last week we launched what we call the new bead and the book. If any of you get it, please tell us how it feels when you read the book, when it's understood, and when you carry the beads with you in your hand. It's important for us to get a feedback that the perfection can be part of the work.
Okay, let's just go back again to the store. If we can, we'll just show everyone the beads that he's talking about. Again, there's a combination of beads for sweetness and pain, and then there's one just for sweetness, and there's one just for pain, or a combination of them. Let's see if we can just hit all products here. And again, this website store is rather antiquated. We're going to look at the beads, and this is what he's referring to, that if you get these beads, it's $300, I believe, per one piece is 300 euro, excuse me, plus the value added tax. Now there's different beads. If you scroll here, you can see sugar beads, 2 pieces. Again, this is a wearable technology. I think it was referenced, one on your left hand and right ankle, or vice versa. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but they're looking for feedback, even though this system has been extensively tested over the years. They're looking for more. When he talks about this butterfly, and of course we have other butterflies in the store, but this is to lay a book on apparently, or to hold in your hand in combination with the beads and see what other emotion. Maybe it can be used as a standalone to see what different emotions it creates. And we have a lot of emotions to learn about. So this is the butterfly, but these, I really, some of these are just exquisite. I think this is the cosmic ray, hidden technologies in there. Again, you don't have to understand the technology. You just have to kind of work with it in a way, or wish that that condition of unwellness is alleviated. If you want to hold on to it, I think you can block these beads. If you want to hold on to a certain condition because it brings you attention, or every time people call you, how are you? Oh, we've been praying for you. You get a lot of attention. But anyway, these are great, and we're just starting to see what wearable technology can do. Again, I think they'll be delivered through this gift of the app, which was mentioned in the previous workshop. So yes, this is a physical product that you can wear for support. Again, balancing conditions. We don't cure or heal anything. We process or balance through the emotions, I believe. Any comments? Let's see. I'm not sure which bead represents which. This could be the combination. I see all the other ones were blue. Now, whether blue represents the sweetness, this is a brown, this represents the pain. So again, hidden technologies can't be replicated, cosmic ray material, free plasmas in these structures. Anyone have any comments on this? I did ask someone I would actually buy them for them, but they said no, they want to stick to what they have, working with the doctors and so on. So yeah, it's a ways to go. But this is what he's talking about with the beads, and asking if you do get them to provide feedback to the Keshe Foundation. And again, this store will go to close to upper 5 and 6 digits, I believe, in the coming time. As he said, there's about 10 spin-offs ready to come out in the next period from the Keshe Foundation. Something you'll see in the store, in the marketplaces, I believe. So you can, again, help the research team and the Keshe Foundation to understand more, and you will probably receive a benefit of whatever is designated there for sweet or for pain. At the same time, helping to give feedback to what's happening, or what you've noticed, let's say.
We're still searching for specialists in different aspects of the technology around the world. We need scientists who are specialized in water decontamination or water purification. We need specialists in building systems and the control. We need system controls both in mechanical and electronics. We need a vast number of people who understand our work to gradually start joining us. Very soon, to those of you who live in China, you'll be open to the uses of the Keshe Foundation, what we call wellness products. We would like to have a feedback from you if you use it, that what it is, that we get a direct answer from you, direct results. We announce the first launch in the next 2, 3, 4 months, but we have to set up a structure that we know as knowledge seekers, you give us a pure indication of, as the process goes through validation through different hospitals and medical structure of the Keshe Foundation and the government. We need large number of people who are specialized in flight system. If you are a flight engineer, we need people to convert the technology knowledge into physical transportation, to tell us about how the way to it, that we can use it in our systems by setting up AIs for it in advance, that the control goes through the what we call energy field in the quantum way, and not the matter state computers. We need a huge amount of support from scientific world. Unless we bring people trying to teach and change their mind, where the knowledge seekers who have their specialty already understand the next step. If there are any questions, we try to answer, and we have to finish around about 11:30 today.
Mr. Keshe, that video has no copyright problems, so do you want me to play it now?
I think many knowledge seekers are looking forward to this. This information has been in the news, and now it's public. It was released more or less by Pentagon because they don't have an answer for it. We talked about this 2-3 days ago. The video has been made available, and now you understand Keshe Foundation work in the defense of Iranian territory. Go ahead.
News. A US F-15 fighter jet was reportedly shot down by an alien UFO. Yes, that's what a US F-15 fighter pilot is claiming. According to the pilot, the F-15 was carrying out its mission inside Iranian airspace when it was suddenly surrounded by a large swarm of drones. The drones were reportedly flying in a jellyfish-like formation, similar to the alien spacecraft often seen in movies. The pilot claimed that there were larger drones at the top and smaller drones beneath them, all flying in a specific pattern. He says all of this happened just as the fighter jet was shot down. There were 2 people on board the aircraft, the main pilot and a weapons officer. The pilot was rescued by U.S. forces within hours, while a major rescue operation was launched to recover the weapons officer. According to reports, nearly 150 U.S. fighter jets, military cargo aircraft, and dozens of helicopters took part in the operation. Iran, however, claims that it was responsible for shooting down the jet. But now, according to the F-15 pilot, the aircraft was actually brought down by an alien UFO. As many of you know, speculation about aliens and UFOs has existed in the United States for decades. Recently, the U.S. government also released several documents related to UFOs, including a number of photographs. However, to this day, no country has presented verified proof that UFOs or extraterrestrial beings exist. Tell us in the comments, do you think the F-15 was shot down by an alien craft? Or is this just another lame excuse from the United States?
We let the lame ducks to come up with an answer. Any questions?
Any comments on this? Anyone would like to make? We've seen other examples of UFOs in Iran, near Isfahan, I believe, in previous workshops that was shared with the public in Iran, some of their capabilities, and we've seen that in some of the war footage that was seen. Any comments? Is it alien craft? I brought up the example of the Reaper drone in 2011 surrounded by plasma. Maybe there were UFOs there, I don't know. And as Mr. Keshe said, they're flying, Iran is flying over the United States on a pretty regular basis with certain craft. He didn't say what, but he said we didn't have the radars to detect them. Any comments on this? As Mr. Keshe said, we'll allow the lame duck to explain. Or was that a cover story of sorts? Partially true and partially not true. I was going to go right into Micah. I think I see you're here, and yours was the first question. I took away from it something about maturity. I don't know if you want to share anything about it or maybe re-listen again and make some comments since you were the asker of this question. Okay, let's continue. Feel free to stop it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keshe. Let me see here. We have a hand up with Micah, or Mika, sorry. Please go ahead.
Greetings. Greetings, Mr. Keshe, Rick, Universal Council, and knowledge seekers. Mr. Keshe, you mentioned in one of your recent workshops that there is a significant amount of emotions that we are not yet aware of. I wondered if you could elaborate a bit on what those emotions are and their functions, if possible. Thank you. By the way, a very interesting video.
It is part of what it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The different field of strength creates different emotions, and we are not used to, we are not aware of, we've been filtered for certain field of strength that create a given emotion. We only access to it when we reach a point of maturity. We are very familiar with these kind of things, but we ignore it, we deny it, and this is the best way for us we ever done. The best example of it is, have you got a little girl? Or do you have a little boy at home? Or you remember when you were little? I'm gonna love you forever. I am the only one I love more than anything in my life. How many times your children have told you that? How many times you said that to your parents when you were little? Because that was the love of a child. Nothing could surpass it. You grew up, you became mature, and then you found emotion, you call it love, you fall in love with a guy, a girl, whatever. And now the promise you made to mom that I love you more than anything else in the world becomes the guy. Because you matured, you have come to understand a new emotion of the love. And that's exactly what's going to happen to you. When you mature in totality, the same body will understand new versions, new dimensions, new strength of love, maturity of different emotions of the same.
So it does sound like its understanding is connected to maturity as well. As we mature, when you mature in totality, you'll understand these new versions, new dimensions, new strength of love, maturity of different emotions of the same. So that's why I had taken any comments, Micah? There's more to the question. We'll continue.
But I warn you, there is another hidden part to this. That is, when a man matures and gets access to universal community, then measure the love you have for the universe, the love you have for the aliens you fall in love with. It's not just the UFOs, it comes from the top of Iran, unfortunately. But you will feel the same changes in the dimension of love, emotion you never knew. Because this time you cannot hold it, you cannot kiss it, you cannot touch it because it kills you, but both feel the same in love. And then,
what does he mean? This time you cannot kiss it, you cannot touch it because it kills you. You cannot hold it. He's talking about the universal community. I think, as he said, if we touch the physicality together, it could bring a demise of both or one party or the other. So this is all, again, happening in that dimension of energy. You cannot physically kiss it. You cannot physically touch it. But you feel the same love because that love, whether it's in physicality or apparently energy, is similar.
You know, that's another way to look at it. When we dream, we interact, but we cannot touch. We cannot do all those physical things, but we're able to feel the same type of emotion or different emotion. So it's actually, it makes sense that in a plasma world or in an energy dimension, that you can still have the same type of feeling that we have here in physicality. But my question is, would we remember what we have experienced here? Like, we will remember our loved ones. And if we don't, does it mean that the time lapse is part of the condition? Like, if you are so lost, so far along, then you don't have that memory because you have other interactions to be able to fill up. But the memory will come back when you encounter. So it's a lot of questions to ask, but it's actually getting a clearer picture of how the plasma dimension, how we can operate in the plasma world. Take example of it is the dream world.
The reality, as opposed to the illusion in the matter state. And again, this is sort of difficult to work through in a way, but it becomes easier and easier, I think, the more you work with it. But apparently there's some interactions that are coming up in the future. Again, this may be 100 years, 1,000 years down the road when humanity starts to fall in love with other creatures of the universe. And apparently we're going to fall head over heels for them. And this is already going on in the universe. Different civilizations are actually creating new creatures, not the way we do it, though, in an interaction of energy, so to speak. And this is what's sort of on tap. But you can't touch them. Again, they could bring their demise, or if touching you could bring a demise. So that's why it's going on in the energy dimension, which again, we've all been, that was one of the questions he asked us in this workshop. Ask yourself, why are we ignorant to our own existence and how we function? So this is all sort of being unraveled gently, slowly for all of us.
You understand the devotion, the new dimension of the energy and fields, which is called love, much stronger the way you love the human. And then that process, it becomes the love of Creator. That emotion you don't know yet. Very few humans have reached that point. Very few. When they get touched by the love of the Creator, when they get touched by the love of its creation. So, you want me to explain what are the emotions? You had emotion of love as a child. You felt it when you became an adult love. And now you feel it when you become the love of the creation and the soul love. Nobody can judge. And there are many the same. It's the vision. You see only in dimension of matter state. You don't see the vision in the energy state. Some of you do call it, I see aura. Then you have to create a new name for the vision of the energy, which man up to now called it an aura, because there was a physicality there. Now it becomes just a light bulb in the middle of nowhere. So there are many emotions we still have to learn. There are emotions that if you're explained, you have no understanding of.
So many emotions we have to learn, and there are emotions that if you are explained about it, you have no understanding of. So that's why he's gradually, step by step, sort of toning us up to be able to understand it. That's why he continues to say, I teach you this in the future, because he needs to lay sort of the underlayment in a way that can be built upon.
You know, emotions is energy in motion. And we know emotions as what comes out of physicality or what comes out of physical interaction. So imagine if you are in the energy dimension and there's no physical interaction, but there's still emotion. So in the sense, interactions in energy world or in fields, and those are emotions that we don't know about. So whenever there's field interaction or energy interaction, there has to be emotion that translates or confirms that. So we don't have the alphabets, or we don't have the words to express all this stuff, but it will come true once we start experiencing it. Then maybe we give it the letters and alphabet, kind of like how we develop our languages and all that here on the planet. It's interesting.
Yeah, the physical part has an emotion, the soul of physicality has an emotion, and apparently the soul also has an emotion. And depending on the combinations of them creates different things. But we heard him say about the dream where you're hugging your mother, but in the physicality, you're not. You're sort of standoffish in a way. So yes, a lot to learn is the bottom line. And that's what keeps me humble, because I know there's so much more to understand. Not even sort of scratch the surface, as we've heard.
There's an emotion man will learn. You call it the emotion of touch. Physical confirmation. You'll find out that you cannot touch, but you're aware of existence. And then what do? You're so much in love, you feel it, gives you that timply dum-dum in your heart, but you can't see it, you can't touch it. And what do? You go inside and you ask yourself, can you touch it for me? Can you let me feel it? And that becomes the point when you understand a new dimension which you don't even have it at this moment. Physicality can't touch it, but you're aware of its existence. And the only thing which touches it is the energy of the soul. This is the time when you confirm the existence of the soul, when the schizophrenic finishes and the reality of creation. I use you when I need, you use me when you need. Then you come to understand what we call universal touch. A lot of people think, oh, these aliens come and go, whatever, and we don't see them because you touching them is danger to you and they can't hurt you. And there was another nice thing which recently came up. How come all the aliens only appear in America? How come only Americans capture aliens? And now the answer to it was the Russian released the aliens they captured. And recently, funny ones you've seen. And tall one walks with Mr. Trump. Of course, AI production. Now, emotions are many. But you have to mature. You're still that infancy love attached to the breast of the mum which called the earth. You only know humans' emotions. Any other question?
Any comments by anyone? As he said, if you travel in the physical craft in the universe, what do you see? You see passengers of the universe in their physical shape, if they have one, and the craft that they're on. When you interact on the energy dimension, you're interacting with the soul of the entity rather than the physicality, if they have any. Is this what he's referring to, or is this something else? And again, much of the physicality cannot interact. It would be very dangerous for one or both parties to actually have a physical touch for whatever reason, contamination or something else. Micah, anything you'd like to add about this? I took away we have a lot of maturity yet, or a lot of maturing to go through.
Well, yeah, I find it very interesting how he speaks more and more about, like aliens and other species or beings in the universe, that it's becoming more and more kind of accepted on a larger scale. And yeah, like it's kind of just really just the beginning of yet another brand new set of teachings from Mr. Keshe. So it really stuck out to me, one of the previous workshops where he mentioned that there's a lot of emotions that we're not yet aware of. And so that really stuck to me. And yeah, that's what that question came out of. So thanks, Mark.
I remember he was saying we use 5 senses. He calls them the 5 prisons. There's apparently 100 senses that we're not even aware of at this point in the universe, or in that.
Right.
Yeah, and it's we're just sort of putting it all together. But thank you for bringing that question. I think it was, again, more understanding, and stay humble. This is the idea. There's much, much more to learn in whatever way you look. Anyone else want to add anything? Apparently, we are going to fall in love with some of these creatures, but again, not with their physicality, more with their energy, asking the soul, can you hug them or touch them? So this is, again, very profound. And again, we have to analyze it for ourselves and play with it. Only I could trigger it, I think, within me, and only you can trigger it within you at this point. Maybe in the future I'll be able to trigger it in someone else, but I have to understand it first myself. And it looks like it's a long way to go. Now, Mr. Keshe talks about building the safe space city, so we're going to go into the second question. Let's see how Alex is doing. We still need to do the Dome of Peace, so you have 5 or 10 more minutes at least. I did want to cover the Swiss conference as well. Any comment? Alex, if you're preparing. Probably got his hands in the dough or something, so he can't open his mic.
It's a good schedule, Mark. I'm with you.
Shortly, we'll be with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keshe.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Micah.
Okay, thank you. We have some questions in the Q&A, so let me get those lined up here. Let me see. When we have a question from Marco Aurelio from the Brazilian community, and this was before we played this video, the last video. He's saying that given that Iran is far ahead in technology, why didn't this appear in Iran first instead of China? I think referring to the agricultural technology and other such things that are appearing in China.
We are running tests in Iran in agriculture. Iran agriculture, if you remember, 2-3 years ago, we even showed the wheat. Keshe Foundation brought all his efforts into one point. Our target is building the space city, and we have to have a center. We tried with Mexico. We saw how the drug traffickers run into Keshe Foundation. We run in Africa. We saw how the ministers and the what they call Belgians run into us. We sit with the Chinese. You're safe. And our team now in 6 months has grown to very good numbers, and it'll increase to about 3,000 sometime in the next 12 months. Our target by the end of 2027 is 10,000 right across China. And we don't stand no threats. We stand a lot of activities, a lot of work. We have brought senior people in different sections of the Keshe Foundation and outside there, we're training them. And I told you, the first spin-offs was set. The first spin-off of the Keshe Foundation in agriculture is set in Iran. And it's getting set up, it's getting started. But the same, we advertised the exhibition in Switzerland in October 23rd, 24th. And
Okay, just let's again show everyone the Keshe Foundation store where you can book for this conference. Mr. Keshe will describe more. He said this wasn't a real conference for knowledge seekers. They've separated the commercial people and the diplomats from when the knowledge seekers meet, because apparently the knowledge seekers don't, there's a certain way you have to act on the diplomatic level, and I'm not mature enough to do that. So they've made a day for knowledge seekers and a day for the commercial and the governmental. Mr. Keshe will go on. This is the actual conference. As he said, you pay us to see the advanced technology and what is to be revealed. You can add this onto your schedule, the 23rd and the 24th of October as it's set right now. This is the actual conference, and as he said, there's more in this little drop. He explained a little bit more, but this is going to be in Zurich, as I understand it, and they're not looking for a lot of knowledge seekers to attend, but I think those who need to be there will be there. And just to show you that in the Keshe Foundation store. Let's go back to the teaching. And again, it's supporting the Keshe Foundation's work. Another way, even if you don't attend, you can buy a ticket for someone else to attend.
it was very funny. One of the French people says, 4 of us coming. I said, go and register. You have to pay us 4,000 to come and see you, but you're not paying 4,000 to come there. You're quite welcome. It's not for you. This exhibition is for governments. This exhibition is not. We just gave the courtesy. If you want to see, that's what it is, because corporations will pay much more. The whole of the Keshe Foundation legal team, management team, is in Zurich for bringing the technological breakthrough in Keshe Foundation, not for your visits. We don't need anyone to come and visit, and we don't pay nobody to come and visit. It's a privilege. You want to be, you want to see, and how you could be part of. That's the privilege you're given. We didn't ask you, pay us 1,000 so that we can start a conference, the exhibition. There's a lot of work going into it, and it's already managed. And that's a pleasure of you turning up. Government decision makers. This is show off the technology at the highest. Tests are going on, and a lot of effort has been put in now already. A lot of tests is going through, a lot of other things going through to be ready. We are not waiting for your 1,000 euros to come in. You come in is your privilege to see what the world sees. You cannot do anything for this. This exhibition is for governments to change the humanity, not for you to pay you to come in. It's one of the most fundamental exhibitions which touches every single one of you living in Europe. Thank you, Mr. Keshe, trying to save us, not pay us to come and see us. What a rubbish.
What is Europe lacking that the rest of us is not lacking? affordable energy. Is that part of it? I know he talked about an exhibition in Europe where they'd help to show something on the energy production. Any comments? And again, he said this this conference will see the fruits of it in 2 or 3 years. So again, they kind of have to chew on it and mull it over and see if it's okay to play with and so on and so forth. But the foundation is moving straight ahead, whether they pick up on it or not. So he said we'd see the fruit from this conference in 2 or 3 years.
This exhibition is set exclusively, and it started by the effort of one knowledge seeker. Beautiful lady brought it through her partner to us, and it was there. It rang the bell. We've done this with the Italian government. Now we went a step further, and this is purely, exclusively set for industry, bringing Keshe Foundation technology. Iranian ambassador to Zurich will be present. Chinese ambassador is invited. Swiss head of state is invited. All invitations are getting set. I already got the agreement for 2 governments. They'll send their ambassadors or second in command in ambassadors. This is a game changer to show the Keshe Foundation is not just cancer. This is a technology which can bring change. The top standard setting people who do the testing are getting invited to test at site. We just thought it'd be nice if knowledge seekers want to come in, and it costs a lot of money to put the boats on the water or get you into a restaurant and the rest of it.
So he said there's going to be testing on site. In a way, when he showed the gas unit in China, there was testing on site confirming, even x-raying the briefcase to see if there was a little cylinder of gas hidden in the briefcase that Mr. Keshe was showing. But it was definitely confirmed. No wires, no outside sources, all coming out of this regular business-sized briefcase. And it was confirmed. So I think there'll be more confirmation on site of what is being shown. And then something special, I'm sure, for the knowledge seekers.
Don't get carried away with your little knowledge. Be there to support that knowledge gets to everyone.
And that was important to me. Don't get carried away with your little knowledge.
We don't expect more than a handful of knowledge seekers on Saturday. If you come in, you come welcome. We already passed quite a good figures. Number of people will be there. This exhibition is not for public. This exhibition is science. If we do it just for, oh, you see, like when we gave the key, oh, they only give things to the government. This time we respected you and you misuse our respect. It's when you see what the government see. And the thing is, most of you knowledge seekers don't behave yourself to sit or come in and know how to handle the ministers. That's why you're not coming on Friday.
See, with these, it's very fragile, apparently. You need to handle the diplomats, and Mr. Keshe has been well seasoned in this. He's actually been trained in this diplomatic parlance in a way, and he doesn't want someone like me coming in and messing it up. So that's one of the reasons we don't understand ambassador speak, perhaps, where Mr. Keshe is well seasoned in this department, as he's been working with them for quite a long time. So that's what the separation is for, not to block you, but maybe block you from making an innocent mistake that could cause a problem, perhaps.
These are sensitive government decisions. These are sensitive because we interfere directly with the government's work. And it all came out of knowledge because we don't go there with just press bunny, launched the first part, and with an insight from another knowledge seeker, and somebody who's not supposed to be a knowledge seeker and hates the Keshe Foundation, brought it on the table, and it was opportunity. Voila. Even as I speak to you now, and you test is set up for this exhibition now on the table, meters away from me. And the test shows, yes, bullseye. So, this exhibition is for you to come and see the beauties of the knowledge. We could have done one day exhibition for governments, and then you would have had all your cries in 2015. He betrayed us. He's given the key to the governments in 2000. We don't get it. We cannot satisfy the human race, can we? But primarily, this is set for, and now with the data we received yesterday, second test is going through today. We confirm the correctness, and we can set up now directly into what we call realms of inviting industries, industrialists to come and see, and the governments change the course and what they do. It's not all going to happen on 22nd. They just come, it has to go to governments, they have to make a decision. The fruit of this exhibition will show itself in maybe 2 to 3 years. But it's the first time Keshe Foundation shows, and I said the next step will be in Africa. We show something unique in Africa. We're still looking for Iran to give us clearance for the Tehran, what we call Iran conference, to come into fruition after this 60 days over. And in Iran, we'll show with the collaboration of Iranian officials and government and military the beauty of the UFOs. Then an American pilot doesn't need to tell you. And don't forget, military and the governments will be invited the first time. Knowledge seekers have to pay to go in. Sorry about that. When you become arrogant, you see yourself as the center of the world, and that's what happened with most of the religions. Any other question?
Okay, so that kind of lays it out for the conference and so on. But there are more conferences. Africa is slated. Tehran is also slated. I know he mentioned Nassau and the Bahamas in the past. So again, just setting the stage in a way, or setting the scene for the new technology. This takes a bit of time to digest and have meetings over, and what about this? And so they're going to hem and haw over it for a while. But the foundation is moving ahead. Just a little appetizer, as I see it. I think we'll go to, let's see, something on the ONN again, 2 hours and 18 minutes. So let me just move this, and then we're going to, whoops, I just lost something. And then we're going to go to the Dome of Peace and Alex. So hopefully this is not too long. Let me just see. Sorry, should have these repositioned, but I don't. Okay, and we'll go to 218 on our beautiful transcript. Thank you to the teams that are creating these different transcripts, which makes the knowledge a bit easier to understand, at least to review what was said and the way it was said, because sometimes we hear things that are put in ways that we've never heard it put before. We kind of have to go back and examine the text a little bit. Okay, 214, somewhere here. It's not complete. Maybe we'll go before that. Okay, all right. Why don't we start at, this is where he said about the quantum technology. Maybe we should. Okay, 214. So we're going to start a little bit after 214. 30. And then we're going to do the Dome of Peace.
So I have a question for you. So you showed a position earlier in the video of a spaceship, a UFO, whatever you want to call it, that was in a position that it took down a fighter jet that was positioned to destroy.
This is not what we claim. This is what an American pilot, one of the experts, the top pilots in the world, has confirmed to his government and in public. There's no speculation. This comes directly from the pilot itself. And it's so important for Pentagon to tell that Iran has a UFO. You have to read what's behind it. And if you've seen President Trump in past days or so has announced that they are starting the quantum technology, which is very, very advanced. Quantum energy, one technology was created by a Chinese knowledge seeker trying to sell the technology to another guy and change the GAN's technology to quantum, not to give it to Keshe Foundation. And the guy who actually tried to sell it to Chinese military got arrested. So when you hear a quantum energy, quantum technology, it's Keshe Foundation and done by the Chinese knowledge seeker who's disappeared. We don't hear him from him anymore. It was the voice of Keshe Foundation in China.
So that should clear up a bit about where this quantum came from. Actually, knowledge seekers, and they tried to sell it. I don't know if the term was there. Maybe the term has been around for 100 years or something as well. But they said this was the quantum technology, something new, but it was actually the Keshe plasma technology. And I guess they sort of got their foot in the trap with that down the road.
Mr. Keshe, can I just quickly say, so my question was going to be that once these ONNs are placed, then maybe the Pentagon will have more issues, because the thought of the knowledge seekers, the souls that are in peace, will be able to create these craft with a thought, and they're peaceful, so they cannot be they will not defend, they will just have a field strength that will stop these tendencies to want to destroy everything. So
you see, the only way is these military governments are only after power. And we work on opposite to equality. And this time is not just feeding or creating medicine or comfort. In the disguise of the ONNs and the systems which we developed, we nourish the soul. What is missing? You see, when a soul accepts a body and it stays in the condition of a body as it is now, it means he has to tolerate a lot of things, because in a way it needs it to reach to the strength that it can separate. It's ready to be planted somewhere else. And so the government drones or using the Keshe Foundation technology is all end up in a matter state, where literally your one ends is the elevation of the soul. You'll find that soon, because we transmit on the plasma strength. We don't transmit on radio frequency. Simple as that. You can buy a telephone now in China and speak in London with it. You don't need no subscription, nothing. These are available for years. And now they're trying to say. In 1991, 92, as I told you, I used to work in Russia extensively. I was taken by the Russian military to a military base. It wasn't even the base, it was on the top of the desert. Underneath was a space city. And I was so close with these guys, talking 40 years ago. They gave me a telephone. They gave me a system. They said, you don't need to go through no system. You want to talk to us, this is the line. I brought this system to England. I left the phone in Manchester and I went to London. I could speak to my wife at home 40 years ago. Needed no number, nothing. This technology is not new. Not paying the telephone companies is not new. Then the British Telecom found out I have such a system. They came to me and says, can you hand over this unit? I said, no, I'm not interfering with your system. I had a number of meetings with MI5. I had sat with the office of the Prime Minister. We want this unit. We know the Russians. You brought it with you. I said, I was given interest. So what now they claim we can speak from Beijing to London. Russian had it 40 years ago. Doesn't need no telephone number, doesn't need no satellite. It's just they slave people with these telephones and satellites to make money. Technologies, we are not going anywhere else. The only thing we're changing is we changing a motion of the sound into the motion of emotion. Well, this is a break, and you can only do it if you understand cosmic ray technology and gas technology. We're not claiming I had this battle with British Telecom for months. The only agreement was I met with the Russian ambassador, Mrs. Mehran, return it back to Moscow.
So if that's what they did with Mr. Keshe, as far as, and he wasn't interfering with the telecom system, imagine if you were successful at making an energy system, they would be asking you to turn it over immediately, either as a national security threat or something else. So that's why I don't think he shared everything on making certain things to keep us safe in a way, because we could have disappeared along with the MagRev or whatever you were using. So he foresaw this and is bringing it in a slower way, but a sure way.
They gave me like a small telescope, about 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters, in a white box. This telescope was in my hand yesterday, and I just brought back so much memories. I brought this telescope. I can see literally the surface of the moon clearly. Handheld, it opens up, you adjust a little thing, and now you can't tell people 40 years ago Russians gave you this thing. I have a very good close connection with Russian military and space, and these were gifts showing me look how advanced we are. And this small telescope was in my hand yesterday. Next time when we develop such a thing, we'll have a soul. We see the existence of the soul on the moon. We feel the emotion of the planet. That's the difference. One looks at the physicality and one looks at the other side.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there. But again, an amazing technology, a tiny 30 or 40 centimeter telescope, and you can see clearly the surface on the moon. And again, other cosmic torches are being developed in the background. As he said in one of the previous workshops, we'll be able to see into energies we haven't seen before in a way, or into the universe in a much, much deeper and true way. Okay, let's go to the Dome of Peace. Any questions? Any comments? All right, let's go to our Dome of Peace. And this is part of the work of the Keshe Foundation and part of the work of us understanding the mystery of the matter state of the entity to its energy dimension. And of course, you can join the Brazilian team. It's a two-step process in a way. You have the daily intentions, which again, a meeting, a formal meeting on Zoom, Telegram, the other avenues that they have it. But again, using the energy dimension to elevate the souls of the world leaders. So if you know a Brazilian person, Portuguese or whatever, they speak both English and Portuguese, depending probably on who's there. But the daily intention is on Wednesday at 6 p.m., I believe it is. I mean, the Wednesday intention, yes, at 6 p.m. Every other day it's at 2 a.m. CEST or 1 a.m. CET. Beautiful meetings. You can start to explore the energy dimension with other souls who are thinking like you. And again, this is part of bringing the change to humanity on the creating that energy dimension first before we see it actually manifest in the matter state. Feel free to join these other beautiful souls in bringing the peace in a way, in a strong way. So 2 steps to the Dome of Peace. One is releasing the Gans water, something for the physicality to do, and then the collective power of the souls. So let's just take us through this real quick.
I don't know if anyone want to read this Dome of Peace. Anyone want to offer?
I will
With a nice
read it
voice.
for you.
Okay.
This is what came in and what is now become a pattern. This from a guy, I don't know him, but he says, please remember this Sunday and every Sunday from now on, till we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet. Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the gas waters around the world at 12 p.m. Central European Time and or 18 p.m. Central European Time every Sunday at the same time as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for participating in this greatest movement by the soul of the man to bring about the peace on this planet as the permanent feature of the life of this planet.
So again, a very simple process, something for your physicality to do. If you're not sure how to make a gas as a nanosolid, you can go on the Keshe Foundation wiki, learn about it. Very simple process. You take some of the water, let the GAN settle, take some of the water from the top third and release that as GANS waters. Again, you can put it in dishes outside for the pets or the birds or whatever. They will help spread it as well. Many different ways to put it into pools or lakes or rivers or streams or oceans, as the Chinese have been doing for over a decade, and now we see some of the major results happening in China. So again, this process continues, not a day job, until we reach a permanent, peaceful planet. And you're all invited to participate. Okay, so then we're going to go to the second step of the Dome of Peace, which is the collective power of the souls. And we'll just demonstrate that for a minute at the end of this. Again, just to say, we're all invited at this 9 p.m. on a daily basis. Ask your soul to remind you, and you'll be surprised how whatever 9 p.m. is to you, that all of a sudden in that sort of time frame, not always, but I find out something triggers within me and say, oh, let's join the others. Again, not a formal meeting, on the energy dimension. As we know, we're all connected through the Creator. So you're all invited, and the beauty of it is no one fails this test. Okay.
Anybody wants to read the Dome of Peace? I mean, beautiful souls. Here. Okay. I'll read this beautiful presentation of Dome of Peace. And the Dome of Peace is already here. All the knowledge seekers, truth seekers, lovers of humanity has built it in a way, spreading the guns, loving each other as shareholders. So I will read this as please remember, every Sunday from now on until we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet, Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the GAN's waters around the world at 12 p.m. CET and or at 18 p.m. CET every Sunday at the same time, as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for the participation in this greatest movement by the soul of man to bring about the peace on this planet as a permanent feature of the life of this planet. Mr. Keshe suggests we add the next step to create the dome of peace with power of the souls, as we have already going through this with the two eyes. And we ask you to spread the GAN's waters each Sunday. Now we give you a new path. Now try to unite each other's souls. Try to elevate the souls of humanity, soul of humanity, through your own soul to a level that no one can touch, the embodiment of the human race. So beautiful. Choose a time where all of you come together on the soul level in a state of inner calmness. At that time, don't spread the water of GAN's, but spread your soul. Unite, and in time, we will make a new race out of the soul of man. And then, instead of doing it once a week, do it all the time. Empty Keshe.
Okay, thank you, Shweta, and thank you, Stefania. Let's just put up this little background where we'll sort of play with this in a way as if this was the soul of the world leaders. And now in a state of collective calmness, in a way, we'll use that energy dimension to help them to elevate in a way, or provide the fields that if the soul, which would be in the center of here, this is just a charging sort of thing that I recorded off a device, but it's the same thing. We're taking our energies, our emotions, and transferring it or offering it again to the world soul of the world leaders, that they could pick it up and change something in the dimension of physicality. So this is very easy working through the plasma. It's not a lot of work as in the physical dimension. And the beauty of it is nobody fails this test. So we thank you in advance for continuing this process. This is about waking up the collective awareness of humanity to want the change. As Mr. Keshe said, if we give you the advanced technology, in 1 or 2 generations, you'll be right back at it again, unless we elevate the soul of humanity. So this is part of the process of learning how to elevate the soul of the world leaders and their spokespeople, who we never see behind the curtain. So let's just take a minute and we'll start now. Okay, and that's how easy the process is. Doesn't take a lot of work, doesn't take a lot of effort, and you can be riding a bicycle or working at your job or changing your grandchild's diaper or anything you'd like, as we're learning to work in both dimensions simultaneously. Okay, thank you very much for your continued participation. Alex, I think you're ready to come in and we're ready to welcome you. Please take over.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks for leading the pack here, and welcome everyone to the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting of 2026. Please remember that you're a very important part of this whole process, and we need to keep up and keep going. So let's take care of business right off the bat here.
Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
So thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting of 2026. Very exciting time for us to be present on this planet because we all came here for a specific reason, and we go through a lifetime trying to figure out what that reason is. And so let's enjoy the experience, shall we? This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Teachings on Plasma Science. We're beginning a new series, the Intermediate Matter Tech series. Today's subject is the Lord of the Rings. My name is Alexander. I am from Canada. It is June the 28th of 2026, and this is a continuation of the part of Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. So in review, we just completed the series of the basic matter tech, where we discussed and finished off with duality. And that duality is not just a confrontation between the light and the dark, and it's not just a confrontation between the Lord of the light and the Lord of the dark. It's another kind of duality. And we touched on it quite a lot in the intermediate Picotech series. And of course, we ended up with that marvelous bullseye. And that is something that the plasma tech always achieves. And the reason for it is because that's the difference between the man-made and the universal made. So we're going to start off with the Intermediate Matter Tech series, and it just goes to show the importance of what we're doing today, because we can't leave anybody behind. That's kind of the difference. When we are lording over people, it isn't a matter of who is more equal. It's a matter of all of us are equal, and all of us need to have the opportunity to come forward. And the question always is how do we achieve that? So the struggle continues, and it seems like the road is getting longer and longer, but the road behind was very long. And what we want to achieve is to make sure that the road forward is even more long, because the universe is because. So we talk about the Lord of the Rings because they say the Lord is my shepherd, but maybe the Lord is my Shakespeare. And the reason I say that is because that was one of the ways that people were able to communicate in the past. And when you look at the history of Shakespeare, you find that Shakespeare was a nom de plume of an author. And this was in Stratford-on-Avon in England. Well, in Canada, we have the Stratford festivals also. Either way, these involve fictional plays. And the nice part of it is that they involve live actors. And so presenting now at the Stratford Festival of 2026 is Schulich's children's plays. And one of them is The Hobbit. And so the question is, who is the Hobbit? But as in all of Shakespeare's plays, we had to decide if it's fact or fiction. Well, this is not a Shakespearean play, but we still ask the same question, is it fact or fiction? And so we remind ourselves of these libraries that we have all around the world, and they are categorically divided into fiction and nonfiction. Well, what's most interesting is that the fiction section doesn't have any skeptics. So the fiction can be presented without any opposition. It's the nonfiction that has many skeptics. And so there's always opposition. And the question then becomes is, why are we investing so much time in being skeptical, and we are robbing the time that we're giving to the nonfiction? And then we find that libraries are frequently targeted for destruction. And so is that an attack on the truth? So when we look at the rings of the earth, we see that the gravity seeks density. And when we look at these concentric circles, they come towards the center. And density operates within the Coulomb barrier of the earth. But there's a balance. That balance is constantly in balance. The balance is a maggraph. So there's a duality of concentric rings and spirals. And so maybe the Lord of the Rings is really the Lord of the density. And we question this because there are lords and gods. Lords are in plural, gods are in plural, such as Aphrodite and Zeus. And then there are the chariots of the gods. So a fleet of chariots. Would one god have a fleet of chariots, or would the fleet of chariots service many gods? So when we look at the science, the limitations are based on verification and validation through man-made means. And this extends through legal methods and debating methods. And as Socrates stated in his trial, I know that I know nothing. The unexamined life is not worth living. Well, life is absolutely worth living, and it needs to be examined. And so we have jumped from the lily pad of duality, where the lily pad floats on the water. And as the raindrops fall, we notice that they create waves. And the raindrops are always at the center of the wave. They always hit that bullseye. But the waves go up and the waves go down. So the impact of the raindrop imparts its magnetical strength, which is through its gravitationally inherent picocore. So that is the physical reality. But there's another physical reality that comes through tuning. And so for that, somehow that frequency has to break on through from the tuning fork to the water without actually touching it. Unlike the raindrop, which actually has to hit it. But the reaction is the same. The form follows the function. The tuning fork exerts an external force and creates an environmental interaction. And so we have waves in duality. In other words, the waves of the tuning fork and the representation of the waves in the surface of the water. No raindrops needed. So when we look at the various highways of travel that we try and go on, we notice that in the transmission highway, it depends on a frequency, and it's only the carbon-12 highway. But when we go to the transition highway, it involves carbon-14 and carbon-10. But the total is carbon-24. That's the balance. And the transmutation highway is even higher. But it involves carbon-16 and carbon-8. The total is carbon-24. So clearly the higher two highways have a higher carbon content. Or are we missing something on the transmission highway? We're missing another carbon-12, and we don't see it. So in effect, it becomes a contraction of energy. And contraction is a phenomenon that we understand with muscles. When muscles contract, they tighten. And once they're tightened, muscles can relax. And we do the same thing with fists. They clench in contraction. And then when they relax, the fists open. The thing you cannot do is not open. If your hand is open, you cannot not open it. It's already open. So you cannot not do something. Not doesn't work. And yet, in the Ten Commandments, the Lord is our God. Seems the Lord has his own duality. And the rings show you that thou shalt not do this and not do that. And so the Lord is the Lord of the rings, not only in the first 10 commandments, but with the completion of the missing commandments, the additional 14, which comes out to 24 commandments. Isn't that kind of interesting? So we are classified as fallen angels because we're falling through weakness, faults, failings, and weaknesses. And so it increases our angular density, increases our pressure and our gravity. It also, too, increases our dependence on Earth space feeding. But there's a counterbalancing internal pressure of the gas fields. So this makes the angular momentum to be conserved. In other words, in balance. So when we look at confrontation, we think of duals. But duals also are part of that duality. But they require an energy contribution. But this, as a confrontation, manifests as friction. And then, of course, fists manifest into fighting, of course. And this is how we divide the society and add the racism to it, which divides us even further. And then, of course, we have the truths and the lies. And we wonder, would a chronic liar believe you if you explain to them how inertia density manifestation manifests? But we need to be polite. So gentlemen, shake hands and come out fighting. Fulfill your energy binding needs, your self-serving dimension point, that convergence of me, myself, and I, and we too often do that at the expense of others. In fact, most often, almost always, do it at the expense of others. Whether we do that knowingly or unknowingly, And the reason for it is because that's how we are conditioned on this planet. But the doing at the expense of others means that they are limited in their energy binding needs. And they have the option to either return the favor, rob you of your energy binding needs, or they have to go somewhere else. And so the domino effect happens. And it affects our vitality capacity. Because whether you are a thief or a liar, you become a loose leaker, not only for the victim, but the abuser. And so we all become loose leakers as such. And the regular context does not give what we need. We need a super enhancement that affects our emotional capacity as well as our physical capacity, like both. That's the duality. So when you look at the plasma science and how it's rated in terms of measure, there's a big difference between doubling up your value or increasing it by a level of magnitude, which is 10 times. And so most of us operate within the mega and the micro environment. But with the plasma science, we've had to expand into the giga and the tera, which is another 6 orders of magnitude. But it has to be counterbalanced by going into the nano and the pico, which also is a 6 orders of magnitude. So to understand the difference between the old science and the new plasma science, we have to think outside of the box. And then, of course, this phenomenon comes full face in the Beijing conference, when in 2025, we began the gold rush, and it continued in 2026 with the silver rush. And now we're finding out that there are many, many nano-monatomic states. There's the pico state, that pico beacon, which has that gravitationally inherent field strength, and then from there, an emission array. We never decide what that array is because it's universal, and it comes from that nebulous blurry point in the nanogap. So how do you make that blurry point crystal clear? How do you pinpoint it? Or is the point less important than the gap? Or is the gap more important? Is there some kind of balance? So in the books of Meron-Tevakoli Keshe, such as book number 1, The Universal Order, The Creation of Matter, we have these different fields coming together, the antimatter, the dark matter, and the matter state. And when they come together, they combine. But when book number 2, The Structure of the Light, takes us from one combined state to another combined state, and we can travel through that. And in that process of travel, we have to have a vehicle. So the Structure of Light discusses that. And then book number 3, The Origin of the Universe, shows us how from the one we split up into 2, which kind of explains how growth happens. So the singularity divides into the duality, and of course we are focused on, well, we're only focused on man's universities, forget the other one, our sister's universe, which is much larger. We're not ready to graduate to discuss that, are we? Because we are not even looking at our own universe. We're so content with our own tiny perfect world, which we call Earth space. Well, not even that. Most of us are not travelers. We like to live in our own domicile, that little condominium that makes us into modern cave dwellers. So for 436 weeks, Rick Crammond and the members of the Universal Council have been bringing together the one nation, one planet, one race for justice and world peace, which involves the nourishment of everyone. We didn't specifically say which nourishment. It has to do with enhancement. So that enhancement comes from the plasma rule, where the higher strength feeds the weaker strength. And again, we didn't say what we feed. That feeding zone becomes the transaction zone. And many of us think that that transaction zone is really at that conflict point where we bring the two armies together. But atomically, it's a binding zone where we bring two field strengths together. And in the process of bringing together these two fields, we create an inertia field. And of course, it's more dense, and so it creates an inertia density manifestation. So there's a sequence in how the energy is transmitted. And you, as the last man standing, have a choice. Your options are to have that gravitational attraction, which we call feedback, and that magnetical repulsion, which we call feeding. But you can turn on and turn off that feeding, and you can increase or decrease that strength, or you can enhance or diminish your positioning. So the stronger is feeding the weaker. That's the key. So the key to that field capture has been reserved for that physical field capture, that rock solid evidence. So the Earth space is our reality bullseye dimension. And that's all we give credit to, because that was our sentimental pie in the sky. And we decided on that because this is me where I have arrived, but it's based on this is not me, Venus, and this is not me, Mars. This is me, Earth. So when we arrive here, who has the authority to accept us and who has the authority to reject us? In other words, who is Lord of this dominion? But when we reference what we're doing, we understand that the sun is up and the ground is below. And we like to have our boots on the ground. Regardless of where we are on this planet, we're not upside down and we're not down under, and we don't walk on the ceiling, but we're always on terra firma. And that brings up the concern we have with the folding deviation of our inertia density manifestation that comes together from this amino acid star formation, which has an extreme similarity between what is created in the solar system and what is created in the human body. And so we reference this as part of our amino acid. The human body has an extra characteristic in terms of calcium as part of the necessary ingredients. So our science has exhibited a distinct kind of racism where we have a battle between science fact and science fiction. Science fiction doesn't have many problems, but the science fact involves science stoppers who are afraid of being wrong, and they like to undermine the current narrative. And to assist in doing that, well, there has to be a science theft, such as from patents or intellectual property rights. But they are governed by international laws, man-made laws, and they're respected by every country except one. And so this leads to an education racism also, because we are limited in how we do things, and it leads us into the humanity racism. So when we look at all the different races on this planet and how they come in different colors, and we see the colors come in concentric circles, like in a rainbow, but each of us is a beacon of light, and that is an inherent dependency X factor. And the reason we know that is because despite the divergence, we all have the same story, the Great Flood. And where did that story come from? Another question is, where did the principal matter come from? Because the principal matter is where we all came from, isn't it? The PM ticks, they were magnetical. They arrived as an energy pack. And so these PM ticks were diverging all over the planet, all over the universe, and all over this planet. And then these force fields would dilute and come together in antimatter, dark matter, or matter gen and converge into the plasma gen, which required a conversion. And from there, another conversion into this gravitational magrav of the interaction, that field interaction between the Earth space and our space. And we call that inertia, but what we have to remember, in the Earth space has its own concentric circles, and the man space has its own concentric circles. So there are two, hence the duality. So this duality is represented in the creation when two forces come together. So we saw our planet and we chose our planet, but we didn't choose our planet by choosing it. We just discriminated as what we didn't want. We didn't want Venus, we didn't want Mars, but we chose the Earth space. And we wonder how we made that decision. Was it just a dream? Or was it an inertia manifestation, regardless of the time and the distance, where we brought together our arrival through concentric circles? Or was that a spiral? Or was it both? Was it overlapping fields, bringing together the X, Y, and Z axis? So we have to determine what was causing that susceptibility in terms of our understanding. Did we reference the upness or the downness? Did we reference the magnetical or the gravitational? Can we reference anything without a magrav condition? So in terms of our susceptibility, that pinpoint vision is offset by that blur fill of the downness. But each ripple in the waves is a magrav. So we're only looking at the upness, but is it dangerous to go down? And we ask ourselves that question. So when we look at the creation of the phospholipids, which are an advanced state of the amino acid construct, we see the phospholipid heads, which are gravitational, and the phospholipid legs, which are magnetical. But the phospholipid itself is a plasmagen conversion, the marriage of the gravitational and magnetical fields, which we call a magrav. And then when we look at this frequency modulation, we can see that in order to go from a straight line of singularity, we have to go into a contraction. So we don't have the gaps. That gives us solidification. But what's different is that when we look at the phospholipids, there are two in duality. And so we have an outside and an inside. And therefore there has to be a transition zone. So the outside is a magrav and the inside is a magrav, but relatively speaking, the outside is magnetical and the inside is gravitational. But in that transition zone, we have the hydrophobic tails facing each other. Like poles repel, so this causes a bit of a problem. And then when we look at this curvature of the cells. And we say, okay, well, when we contract the gaps in the frequency, we create a solid line. But to balance the field, we have to have an upside and a downside. And so the downside is really a reflection of the upside. We have to reach that conclusion because the phospholipids do that for each and every one of our cells. So the expansion and contraction is definitely a characteristic of the pH, what we call the potentiation of hydrogen. So when we look at something that is healthy, there's a balance. That X factor that creates that balance, which is slightly alkaline, but it reflects on the status of the DNA. But if we become alkaline, then the intensity dominates and the DNA shrinks. But if it's acidic, then the intensity dominates and the DNA expands. That affects the communication. So when we look at the phospholipids, and they are in two layers, but when they create this ring, then without destroying the cell, there has to be a metabolism, a magnetical casting out from that picocore, that gravitational bullseye in the center where all things are converging. So who is the Lord of the metabolism rings? What about the Lord of the metaphysical rings? What is metaphysical? That pertains to the branch of philosophy known as metaphysics, which explores the fundamental nature of reality, existence, and the universe. It goes beyond the physical sciences by investigating abstract concepts like time, space, causality, free will, and the relationship between mind and matter. So when we look at the declassified records of the cosmic egg rings, we wonder, we have a universal ring and a hologram ring. And then we have a time-space evolving ring. And then there are these points where the flow of time-space turns opposite towards the opposite poles of ovoids. So who's the Lord of the Rings? Or who's the Hobbit of the Rings? And then there are torus rings. These are not concentric rings, these are spirals. So we ask the same question of who is the Lord of the spirals? Or who is the Hobbit of the spirals? So now we're asking double the number of questions. So that means we have to understand that transaction zone. We see the singularity, but that requires a solo effort. It's the duality that requires a partnership. And so the cellular metabolism accomplishes that. But a partnership requires reciprocity. In other words, a balance of incentives. So therefore, the inside has to balance the outside. Why? Because that's the nature of digestion, where the food converts to GANs. That's part of the energy supplementation. And we want to absorb that nutrition essence. And we do that through this gravitational attraction of energy. But at the same time, we have to release the waste essence, that magnetical repulsion of energy. And so if we do that successfully, then we maintain this cellular stability, where not only do we maintain these concentric rings of the phospholipids, but we also maintain this spiral effect of this metabolitic process. So what we're doing is always choosing that X factor, that out-density interaction with our environment from that gravitational interaction of our neutron in the center, in the nucleus. And this interaction is ongoing. But in that process, it gives us a stability. So the stability of our existence is all based on this peace dome shielding that shields Earth, our Earth space. And our position within this Earth space is determined by the RNA feeding. The quality of the RNA feeding is determined by the mRNA feedback. And the balance between the feeding state and the feedback state is that matter-gen reflection state. It reflects the balance between what we need and what we have and what we want. And so in order to maintain that stability, we were able to replicate that using the cups of life. So one was the cup of emotion, one was the cup of physicality. Cup of emotion was magnetical, the cup of physicality was gravitational. And the cup of man needs both. That's a partnership. And that partnership is a magrav. And when it's in balance and when it's stable, it is in a healthy state. So when we look at the energy as it comes as a parceling unit, we see how it manifests in water. We see the negative hydrogen and the positive oxygen. The hydrogen is magnetical, the oxygen is gravitational. And so it's an orientation. But the combination is a magrav. Well, how do you balance two hydrogens, two tiny hydrogens, and the one big fat oxygen? And then you maintain that magrav by donating a hydrogen. That now it's no longer water, it's a hydroxyl. And you still maintain this relationship where the orientation on one side is magnetical and the orientation on the other side is gravitational. So now we have a directional flow. But when you look at that hydrogen component, it consists of an electron and a proton. And the magrav itself is an interaction point between the magnetical nature of the electron and the gravitational nature of the proton. And so the only way that we can keep that going is through motion. There has to be a rotating field of stability. So when we create a star formation, we now increase the number of stable fields. And that star formation itself has the same kind of relationship that magrav, where the singular hydrogen is magnetical and the base is of the creation of matter is gravitational. And so that allows us to have this stability, this equilibrium. So this exposes the plasma matter dilemma. We can see the atomic state, nanostate, and the GaN state, and we try and balance those and we can mingle between them. But the supporting structure is the plasma state, and it too has to be in balance. And so this magrav energy transfer state, which also has to be in balance. And how does it do that when it crosses over from the plasma state to the physical state? So obviously it can travel. And obviously in that position of traveling, it has to be able to be in balance. So the position of traveling is demanding of the conditional balance. So when we look at that star formation, we see that the plasma state is magnetical, and the GANs and the atomic and the nanostate come together in that gravitational mode. So the star formation becomes that MACRAF. But if we align the star formations the way we did the phospholipids, then we see that we have to have two stars converging, but they're head to head or tail to tail. Well, which is it? The alignment is magnetical to magnetical. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the star formation has a duality. So there's an upper row, like the phospholipids, and an inner row. So the upper row is gravitational, and the bottom row is gravitational, and there's magnetical alignment. Like poles repel. Remember that. So these star formations achieve a duality. And so we see in this laminar flow that comes from this physical acceleration through a plasmatic superconductivity, where we have one row of duality that creates a MAGRAF, and another row of duality that creates a MAGRAF. So we have a duality of MAGRAFs. And the maintenance of each MAGRAF is a gravitational containment. So the gravitational fields come together like poles repel. So there must be a magnetical field in between. So the plasmatic superconductivity is aligned along that blur fill threshold, which we don't even want to look at, right? All we see is that MAGRAF. We don't see the energy flow, because this energy flow is a laminar flow where we can flow up, over, or under, or through, which means we have rings of duality, because we have to align ourselves in the curvature structure like the phospholipids. But why do we have rings of duality when we have this structure of duality? We as man space live on Earth space. Earth space has its own rings of duality. Man space has its own rings of duality. We move on Earth, and the Earth moves within the solar system. So our field of reference has to be contained. The Earth space field of reference has to be contained. And so these are the rings of duality, which leads us to question, how do we maintain this connection? And so we see that with our brains, we are connected with the copper GANs and the zinc GANs and the carbon GANs, the convergence in our physicality with the universal plasmatic state. So there has to be a different kind of connection, not a physical, but an intangible. And that X factor is love. So what is it that we need supplementation of on this planet? We focus on consumption. That consumption has been derived over years and years of acquired knowledge, which stems from that conditional teaching by ancient teachers. But what about the unconditional teaching by the Creator? So we've exposed a shortfall of about 20%, and we have a new awareness that there is a threshold. It's a historical threshold between the cosmic feeding and the loosh harvesting. And that balance is also Magrav. It's like a tug of war, though, isn't it? Because we have this basic physical autonomy, that capacity to draw on internal energetic reserves, some more than others. We depend on the absorption of energy from surrounding environments. And the failure to do that leads to nourishment supplementation from external food and water intake. And that affects the metabolic system and alters it. That affects our memory capacity as well. So there's a transgenerational ancestral memory. There's a cumulative cultural inheritance directly transmitted through the bloodline. But our memory reboots with each generation. And so that learning requires relearning. But it's a slow method, a slow channel of language, writing, and by example. And we have libraries, and we also have the internet. But we need to speed it up, so we introduce artificial intelligence. That's a fast channel of learning. But how can you learn something that doesn't exist? So that learning is still limited to the readily accessible knowledge. So new learning requires human intervention. And that's the physical dimension. But they say as above, so below, on earth as it is in heaven. So yeah, heaven is up and earth is below, which means that the heaven is the stronger field and earth is the weaker field. But it's in heaven. Heaven is in and earth is out. So which way is it? So we are trying to break through as pioneering angels or as arrived angels, seeking those pathways. Do you dare to look down? And you'll have to enter at your own risk. Because if you're a pioneer, and here we are pioneering America, we have to understand, is it a reflection or is it an illusion? And what about love? I say many times it's two-faced. And is love just about the giving, or is it about love the taking? Is it upness or downness? So if we understand that there's two facets, then the carbon inertia highways have to have a substructure. And the substructure has to have a substructure. The feeding comes from the cosmic rays. And they have to have a stability, an equilibrium. They have to have a direction of flow. And they're not singular. Have to be at least in duality. Each magnetical field has to have a balancing gravitational field, a MAGRAV condition. Which field are you referencing? And how do you complete the whole project? So this is what we have to work on in the plasma science. Because, yeah, there's an inherent susceptibility and singularity, but it needs a duality, because that's where you get the gravitational completion, that external input, a second field, a Gans field of humanity. We are that X factor. We have that capacity. We have that capacity to transit the counterweight measures, that physical state, which we measure by weight, and the atomic state we measure by mass. But that is the gravitational part. The nuclear state we measure in Teslas, and the plasmatic state we measure in time, but that's the magnetical part. So the duality there is how the plasma is manifest. And no two plasmas are the same. And so when they come together, they create this MAGRAV. But they manifest in various dimensional array points. It all depends on the environment. And so you have this transaction zone, and what we reference is our gravitational certainty. How we have that emission light array crossing that threshold into that gravitational certainty, and we're dependent on the oxygen, that non-visible X factor gas, which shows how we do that plasmatic decay to Gans. And then the Gans decay from gas to liquid and to solid gives us that physical anchorage that is gravitationally inherent, but not just non-visible, because it has a visible fingerprint, that emission spectrum, which tells us exactly what its nature is. So when we look at these inherent attributes, it shows that there's a gravitational conformation, that gravitational center point, which we call a gravitational picocore, but that is where you have that gravitational certainty. So now we understand this is a mutually assured construction. It's always a construction. And as we head into that uncharted territory, we see that we are an array within an array, the arrays of duality. And then there are many stars beyond the nanomonatomic state, and they cover the full range from decay to radiation, both up and down. So the AI is really that ancestral intelligence, and we are the technology, we are the inertia product, we are the image of our dimensional convergence point. As the last man standing, that reflects our timelessness. We talk about the man, the myth, and the legends. Are you a legend in your own mind, or are you a legend in the Sumerian texts? We have to research the plasma science, better understand the physical science, and differentiate from the pseudoscience, that reality which we continue to ignore and forget, because some gods have an amnesia. This concept of Agartha, which is the mentioned legendary kingdom said to be on the earth's inner surface, sometimes involving a king of the world or multiple kings. Again, plural. And these kings are said to rule and secretly influence events on the surface world. This is a modern esoteric concept from the 19th and 20th centuries, popularized through Western occultism, science fiction, and of course those hollow earth myths. So when we talk about energy portability, that's energy modulation through state transition. Let's identify the elevation. That's the physical matter state to energy state. And identify the energy. That's the opposite, the energy state to physical matter state. So elevation involves expansion, and the physical manifestation involves contraction. All actions are positive. You cannot not do something. So we are seeking that greater oneness, that Magrav, to suddenly transcend limitations of nuclear science. And for 648 weeks, the Knowledge Seekers workshops have been bringing together this technology and its understanding. Our research teams are looking to convert diamonds to gold or silver. The anniversary of May the 10th of 2025 was the establishment of the Pico Core of Truth, that nebulous, blurry fill. And we're seeking champions. We're calling all gamers, all self-service lords. Be the self-service in the service of others. Through the game of peace and enlightenment, many groups will need champions to participate and enjoy. And communicate through that One Nation network, that scientific rescue that opens the blinds and allows us to hit that bullseye and modulate that X factor of our existence, One Nation network at a time. And that time is now. So as we said in the 630th Knowledge Seeker Workshop, these are embedded, inherent frequencies that are representative of our soul and soul of physicality. But this requires a blur fill, because the soul and the soul of physicality always hit the bullseye, but there's a gap. We have to break through that gap. Are you ready to break through? Overcome that space racism, that science fact versus that science fiction. Understanding that the universal councils are not a competition between that earthbound and spacebound reality. In space, we look at world rulers versus world leaders, or warmongers versus peacemongers. How is it that the hand that kills is competing against the hand that caresses? Or is it the same hand that has a compassion, racism burden? We have a capacities, racism burden. We need to overcome that. Our mission is to bring peace on earth and join humanity with the universal community. We want to bring man as equal to all the beings in the universe by teaching the plasma science and technology equally to everyone, that no one is left out and no one is abused to the lack of knowledge. So please help us achieve this goal, because that is your goal. And the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute is teaching plasma science, welcoming all the beautiful plasma travelers of the carbon nations, learning about the new frequencies of the new organic plasma science. So that World Peace Treaty is something that you choose as a last man standing. Sign it unconditionally, mean it sincerely. The matter tech dominates our seed core manifestation. The man-made margin exists between the war dome and the peace dome. Is the inertia of the present governed by dimensions of history, or is it time to learn the history of self in a universal context? The physical Magrav state has a limited marginal strength capacity, and the key of truth will reveal who is the Lord of the bountiful physical matter state inertia conditions. The plasma science needs to continue to be enhanced daily via the Peace Dome in a practical exchange for peace on Earth. So all of you standing, welcome to the new golden outer space age. And I hope you enjoyed this trip. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex. Let's see if any of the participants would like to share anything or ask a question, whether it was to do with what you've just presented or something else. That hole you often show in your GANs, that's where the soul is sitting in the GANs, Alex? Is that the center of energy, where you say this is a hole in the GANs?
Well, I think to be clear, or to be correct, that hole in the GANs is where the soul could sit. It would be the target, the bullseye for the soul. The question really comes, would the soul sit there? What would be the motivation for the soul to arrive there? You can't do nothing. You can't go nowhere. Nothing is nothing. Something is always something. So in order to go somewhere, there has to be a place to go to. So the GANS itself becomes that resonant target. And the hole in the GANS becomes the, shall we say, headquarters? Are you always present there? Are you always resident there? If you think of the GANS as your home, and you only think in terms of physicality, if you always stayed at home, you may never go to work, or you may never travel. Can you travel without abandoning your home? If that were true, then vacations would not be possible. So you could leave your home, go on vacation, and then return to your home. So therefore, the connection to your home is not severed when you go on a vacation. But if you, say, buy another home or move to another home, you would sever your connection. So the only connection you would have would be in your memory. And that memory is really your existence. And then the question becomes, how much do you want to dwell in your memory, or how much do you want to dwell in your present? Well, I used to live there. I used to be there. And when you go into, it's such a tough subject, because we have so many soldiers of fortune and patriots who fight for their country, and they end up, in these legion halls, and they recount their battles in the battlefield. And that's what they talk about every day, because of the glory years. When their life was meaningful, they fought for their country. But many veterans opt out. The guns and the bullets couldn't kill them, but they make that supreme sacrifice with their own hand. What is the difference when you take someone else's life or you take your own life? It's still a violation of the universal law. It means you abandon your core value. You abandon that home. When you abandon that home, do you have another field to go to move to? So without that destination, you can't go anywhere. And so this is the dilemma that we're facing here. Yeah, that hole in the Gans, that's where the soul will reside. But that doesn't determine whether the soul will reside there. Will the soul accept that residence? And so this is our dilemma. If we only look at the tangible, physical matter state, then all we see is the Gans. We don't see the whole. But when we see the whole, then that's a shocker, because now we've seen something. And as they say, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so that's the new reality. And so we have to face the facts. And the facts are saying, why is it taking us so long to face the facts? There must be many skeptics who are, shall we say, acting as stoppers. And it's very unfortunate, because that only contributes to the loosh harvesting, which is a sapping of energy. So what we see is that residence that you talk about is the hole in the Gans. That's the residence of enhancement. Back to you, Mark.
Okay. Not sure I'm quite settled on that, but I know I have a lot to understand for sure. Anyone else want to bring up a thought or a question for Alex? Are you stumping our panelists again?
Listen, this is important to stump the panel, because there's two things that we have to understand. One is that there's a lot to learn. And two, participating in this type of exercise allows us to focus on these important questions, because when we look at the historical reading of Socrates, the unexamined life is not worth living. Imagine going through life and not knowing why you came here. That is something that really, when you ask that question, and not enough people do ask that question, but if you ask that question, it should really cause a earthquake in your stability, because you say, well, I'm firmly planted on the ground, but if that ground is not solid, how firmly planted are you? And when that ground is false, then the structure of your belief comes crashing down. Are you able to withstand that? Are you able to adjust? Will you be able to transition that gracefully?
Right. That's probably the condition of most who've existed on this planet. Not a clue. They thought they had a clue, but I guess they find out more once they make that separation. There's quite a bit more to learn and understand. That's one of the benefits of being in and around the Keshe Foundation. You can sort of practice these things or feel the experience of it before you actually make that final separation. So you'll have a kind of a clue of what you may like to do.
Each of us has a motivation to be here and participate in it, and then none of us really want to waste our time. The thing is that what motivates me greatly is because when I became aware, and that is the first step, I had this belief that I was, well educated. I came from the Western world, North America, and we were where it's at. We were the focus of attention. We were the pinnacle of modern living, and I got a rude awakening, and I was very angry. In fact, I was almost irrationally angry. And I was angry for being angry. And that anger comes about from when you realize that you've been deceived. And everyone goes through these experiences. We all react through differently. And it's interesting that this week, Mr. Keshe brought up a tragic time in his life and how he handled it. And instead of fighting it in terms of a confrontation or retribution, just change the path. When you change the path, you change the susceptibility. So you give your time and attention to whatever it is that you want. And if you want war, you shall have it. And if you want peace, you shall have it. So you cannot have something you don't want. You can only have something that you do want. The wanting is a positive action. And that's different from greed. The method of how you want it is what's important. And when you want it in terms of singularity, it's very limiting because you're only looking at half the picture. But if you're wanting it as a contribution, and what is that contribution? Let's remember when someone says, oh, will you contribute to our charity? The reason most people do that is to soothe their guilt. I don't mind running roughshod over everyone as long as I give to charity to balance it out. But then when you find that that charity is doing the same thing and pocketing all the money that you give to them, and they do that by deceiving you. Say, oh, well, you're giving to this charity. No, you're not. You're giving it to soothe your soul because your soul is feeling the burden of your limitation in this physicality. So in terms of the concentric rings, we say so many times, what comes around goes around. So do you have to go along to get along? Because you get to choose your path. You're the last man standing. Thanks very much for your question. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Alex. Anyone else?
I have a little question. It is, I don't know if it's actually related to the teaching, but at least I'll ask it. It crosses my mind. What happens when there are no borders and people decide they want where you are, instead of some sort of let's call it maybe a soul plan, I don't know, of how or where people are welcome? Like, if people are desperate, then they will end up being in conflict. So how, in a way, can our souls help to solve that little dilemma? Because there's plenty of place. It's just finding the right place to be.
What a terrific question. It's interesting the way you phrase that question. It's just a little question. So if we understand the picoscience and we understand the surface to volume ratio, that little question has a tremendous amount of power. It's concentrated. But if we look at if we understand that fields overlap, then maybe you could rephrase your question. And I do believe that you're married, so that would mean that in your domicile, you would have to make room for a partner. So the field strength of that domicile is based on the Magritte condition of the partnership. When living in singularity in domicile, you can still reside there, but there's always this requirement to balance it out. And so we choose how to balance it off. Some of us do that through addiction, and find it, and it's agreeable. Then we somehow, within our singularity, within our domicile, we have to make room. And what we have to determine, how disruptive will it be? Well, the answer lies in the welcoming. So you, as the initial resident of the domicile, would have to want to have a partner. And the arriving partner coming to that domicile would have to have the want to be there. So in other words, the coming together of the two force fields cannot come together without the agreement of the individuals involved. And so, although it's your domicile, the initial motivation is your desire to have a partner. And it has to be compatible with the partner's desire to also have a partner. And so when these two fields overlap, they create this Magritte condition. So then the question is, will that be a point of confrontation, or will that be a binding zone? And when we say binding zone, it's a binding in teamwork. And so this is the problem that we have in our society, because we have city people who are in overcrowded conditions, and we have country people who like the outdoors and want to get away from the city. We're coming up on, the long weekends in North America, and July the 1st is Canada's Independence Day. July the 4th is America's Independence Day, and people will be traveling, and they will want to leave the big city, and not leave as in just, casualty depart, but casually evacuate, flee, rush, beat the rush, get out of town, and go where it's peaceful and quiet. And when you go to these peaceful and quiet places in the country, you find it's invaded by city people. It is anything but peaceful and quiet. However, the environment has changed. And then they go back at the end of their holiday, at the end of the weekend or whatever, and go back to the city, to their crowded place. So it's kind of funny, how that works. And what's the opposite? Well, the country people who are waiting, expecting the invasion of the city people, they too depart. And where do the country people go? It's unbelievable. They go to their campgrounds, and they go farther away. So this is the anomaly of the plasma science. This inherent social action of getting away from it is opposite to the plasma science, where we all need to converge into that greater oneness. So instead of vomiting this hatred, we focus on this love. And it's not that extremely sweet cherry pie. This is how things come together. So if we understand that, if we understand the true intention, that if you want to bring peace and harmony in your household, it takes two to tango. That part is true. And so there has to be a welcoming on both sides. And unfortunately, too many come together for the wrong reasons. It's based on reasons other than compatibility. It's reasons based on taking advantage, of the moment in time, not caring about, the long-term effects. Well, in the plasma science, in the universe, there are always consequences. So sometimes we have to choose that delay in consequences, but we mustn't forget that there are always consequences. So the best way to avoid these consequences, and let's just pick one, lying. You have to remember that you lied. Well, when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember that you told the truth. You only have to remember that when you told a lie. And so you always have this consequence of being careful that when you suddenly tell the truth and someone says, well, wait a second, that was not what you said before. So what you said before, was it a lie? Oh, no, I didn't mean that. And so now you have to cover it up. And this is what we do. So this is why we diverge. This is what happens when you get betrayed, when you get deceived. You create a separation. The separation is important insofar as it takes two walls to hold a roof. One post can not do it. So it takes two hands to clap. It takes two. Duality. And it has to be a welcoming. Otherwise, it creates a conflict. And we are all living in a environment, a field of conflict. How do we change that? We're always one-sided. We see our existence as a point of conflict. And so when we invite someone into our domain, are we exposing ourselves to a potential conflict? We really can't think in those terms, because then we will freeze. We'll become like a deer in the headlights and say, oh, no, I don't want to jeopardize my position. I'm a happy bullfrog on my lily pad and I don't want to move. You become paralyzed. Life is always in motion. Energy is always in motion. It gives and takes. We don't make that choice. All we do is we can enhance or diminish. So we make that choice. And we have to be knowledgeable on how to make that choice. And when we come to a position where we don't have enough knowledge to make that decision, then we have to go with our gut feeling. And our gut feeling better be true. And the story continues. Thanks very much, Gail.
That's a moral philosophy coming from plasma science. Well done.
Anyone else have a thought or a comment or a question they'd like to pose?
Thanks, everyone, for allowing me to present. I hope you enjoyed today's session, and let's look forward to new and exciting adventures down the road.
Yes, it does seem like we have a ways to go in our understanding of many emotions. Daniel, did you want to make a comment? No, I guess the mic closed. Anyone else?
I just did it by accident, Mark. Sorry about that.
Say again? I didn't quite hear that.
Oh, it was just
Hit my volume by audio by accident.
Okay, that's no problem. We all do.
Yeah. One of those situations today where I can't control my fingers.
Okay, we're learning more about control, that's for sure. We're looking for system control experts as well. I think we'll put that in the chat.
I'm not one of them.
Okay. But there's room enough for everyone to contribute, participate, and expand the foundation's knowledge, not only here, but apparently we're taking this across the universe. It needs to be shared. Anything else anyone would like to share? Otherwise, I'll take the screen, we'll play the final disclaimer, and the session will end. But of course, it never ends, one day into the next, and the knowledge continues to grow and expand and touches more and more day by day. And that's part of the evolution or elevation of all the souls on this planet, including the soul of this planet. And then we take it out into the universe with probably a little help from our friends, or maybe even traveling with other partners that we have no awareness of at this moment. We'll have to see. I think it's an extremely bright future for humanity and for the entire creation. We go through this sort of remodeling process. Thank you, Alex, from Daniel and Mark, and thanks to each and every one of you for being here and, again, helping to bring the change in whatever way you decide to engage. Okay, I'll play the final disclaimer and the session will close. Any final thoughts, comments, something you've been biting your tongue to say or not say, please feel free. Okay, thank you again, everyone. Continue exploring, learning, absorbing, and sharing. And stay humble if you can in that entire process. Have an amazing rest of your day. Let's make sure we are sharing the screen and the sound. And here we go. We'll see everyone in one of the next sessions. Thank you all.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.